Okay.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another Cult Watch stream. It's been a while since we've done one of these, hasn't it? So today we're going to be talking about A.J. Miller, Australia's Jesus. He's yet another cult leader who is claiming to be the reincarnation of Jesus. Not an uncommon claim as far as cults go, but he's kind of an interesting figure, so we'll take a look and should be good. Freyline with 100 bits says, "Oh no, my headphones are dead and I left my case at home. Guess I'll watch the VOD. Oh, I'm really sorry." Oh, thank you, Flotch. Oh, wait! I know you! I know you! At least I think. I have a friend who uses that exact username. Yes, okay, you are. Good. It's good to see you. We should hang out soon. That's an actual real-life friend of mine. Chat. I'm not just weird. Krizia, thanks for 55 months at tier 2. Says 55 is a lot. Who they are? You don't know this person. I went to middle school and high school with that person. He's a friend of mine. Anyway. Alright. We are all screen people. The difference is I don't know you screen people. Hannah has IRL friends on the bingo card, only occasionally when my ADHD allows me to actually stay in contact with people, which doesn't happen often. Jealous? Don't be jealous. No one should want to be friends with me. I'm impossible to be friends with, I promise. Alted Undying says, "Can I get a shout out for my stream after yours?" Of course. Yeah, we talked about this. Of course. Dude, just make sure you remind me. I will try and remember. Boop. Alright, where were we? Mr. Blast, thanks for gifting a sub. Appreciate it. So So yeah, today we're going to be just looking at stuff about this guy who claims to be Jesus. He's from Australia, and I've been saving this joke, so I'm just going to use it now. You call that a Christ? This is a Christ. Crocodile Dundee. Anyway, alright, let's get into it. If you want to support the stream, gift subs, subscribing, memberships, bits, you know the deal. We're on a hype train, 2% to level 2. So let's get into it.
Tonight, a worldwide investigation into the evil and destructive ways of a self-proclaimed messiah, a charismatic Australian who's...
Is it global if it's just Australia? I know. There are people on other continents who believe him, unfortunately.
Devoted
Your mom's a hype train. I don't think so. I like hype trains.
Disciples believe he walked this earth 2,000 years ago. We commissioned the Reverend David Milliken, one of the world's foremost experts on cults, to head up our special investigation that's been 10 months.
Oh, sorry, I got we're doing costumes still. I gotta do the thing. God damn it. We did it. I'm a dinosaur.
The making. Tonight, we'll take you inside the Messiah's isolated Queensland compound, where he's preparing his followers, including children, for the apocalyptic end of the world.
Okay, so that's not a good thing. I don't know if you know this, but in doomsday cults, there's this thing called forcing the end. And when their predictions don't come true or things start to go sour for them, they will, in fact, enact their own sort of apocalypse. We saw this with the Heaven's Gate cult. We saw this at Jonestown. I'm just putting that out there. Often, with cults like this, there is the danger that they will self-eliminate, or a mix of self-elimination and then, you know, forcing it on other people within the cult, which happened at Jonestown, unfortunately. Dinosaurs go roar, roar, roar. They do densetsu. Good job.
Group is coming together in a community, and that Miller is developing a compound.
Flavor Aid, not Kool-Aid. I think it was a mix. I think there was some Flavor Aid and Kool-Aid. See, everyone said drink the Kool-Aid, and then my conspiracy theory is that whoever owns Kool-Aid, whatever large conglomerate owns Kool-Aid, started paying people online to do the but actually Flavor Aid fact to obscure that there was both Flavor Aid and Kool-Aid. Doesn't matter, though.
In my opinion, is ominous, because only the most extreme cults isolate themselves in a compound. Jonestown or a Waco Davidian group, which were two groups that ended tragically in mass suicide. This is when groups become the most extreme, because the leader controls everything.
The leader is this man.
My name's Alan John Miller, but I'm actually Jesus.
Oh, the editing in this is a lot. So yeah, this is him. This is AJ. He claims to be Jesus. I'll give him this. He has the look for white Jesus. He looks like one of those paintings of white Jesus. He's no, Willem Dafoe, though. You guys seen The Last Temptation of Christ? My favorite Jesus movie. The only one where Jesus fucks.
I remember all of the events.
Is this a new cult or an old cult recording? They're still around, but they've been around for some years. I found videos as far back as 13 years ago he started teaching this stuff, but he is still currently doing this and has a group.
Of my crucifixion, I understood what was going on. I understood the reason for my death.
And he's collecting disciples. Miller has convinced them that they were with him at his crucifixion.
Just went to get the spike and smash it into his hands, and just so much love that came from him, so I couldn't do it.
Was it?
Yeah, he's completely brainwashing his followers in sessions, basically, and giving them false memories that they were disciples of his in his previous life as the original Jesus. So he's basically traumatizing them with fake memories in order to bond them to him and to his beliefs. It's very messed up. They've basically eschewed their old identities and completely replaced them with new identities that only fit within the cult. Which, again, pretty par for the course as far as cults go.
Excruciating to watch basically the annihilation of the person that I love the most.
All the disciples were reincarnated as Australians. Yeah, it's convenient, isn't it? It's like it flips hemispheres every reincarnation, and there's just fewer locations in the southern hemisphere for them to be born. So they picked Australia. Could have been worse. They could have been Kiwis.
Whenever I think about him now, I just cry. I'm starting to have a soul, like an emotional realization of who he is.
I'm on the way to Murgon in country Queensland to 2 days of teachings by Yeshua ben Joseph, or Jesus. It's a gathering of the faithful from around the world.
Well, welcome along.
Midnight Wolf says, side note, I don't understand how Christians can watch those movies about Jesus' death. It bothers me a lot seeing even a portion of them. Passion of the Christ is real rough. That one's basically torture porn. Passion of the Christ is up there with the Saw movies in terms of, like, depictions of violence, and I'm not being facetious. That one I find hard to get through. That one's a really rough movie. But there are a lot of really good movies about Jesus, and I'm not a believer. You guys know I'm an atheist. But, like, there are some good movies about Jesus. Like I said, The Last Temptation of Christ. Last Days in the Desert with Ewan McGregor is pretty good. The silent film King of Kings by Cecil B. DeMille is really great if you're into silent film. Basically any Jesus Christ Superstar if you're into musicals, of course. Yeah, there's a lot of good Jesus movies that don't focus on the overt depiction of violence, you know? That's a part of it if they're doing crucifixion stuff, but it isn't so romanticized like in Passion. Passion really romanticizes the violence. It focuses on it as, like, the focal emotional point of the entire film is, watch this suffering. You should feel bad because this character suffered for you. You're a Christian. That's what you believe, you know? And I find that to be borderline, like, obscene. Like, I just find that to be so manipulative. Again, not saying don't watch the movie. It just kind of galls me a little bit, especially when there are so many good depictions of Jesus as a character in film. But anyway, feels like a religious snuff film. Yes, that's a good way to describe it.
I'm Jesus, this is Mary. And so what we want to do today is talk about addictions and bribery and fear, threats and blackmail. I can feel that many of you are still in...
Captain Rachel says, if I could play someone in a, like, even semi-professional show, I'd want it to be Judas and Jesus Christ Superstar. Of course. Agreed. You get to do the titular number, which is fucking great.
Addictions.
Buddha, was he where at? Is he where you are?
With regard to your
Did Muhammad move a mountain, or was that just PR? So good.
development towards God. I've got all of these emotional injuries. I will feed them with my truth. These things are not going...
And it's all about emotional manipulation. Look at this. He's having people cry, and they're just, like, talking in a room. Oh, God.
...to go away from you just by you getting baptised.
To me, these words sound like rehashed New Age pop psychology. But for these people, they burn with the light of divine truth.
Let yourself feel the disillusionment you feel, the disillusionment about the search.
What's happening here is AJ is talking about emotions. Now, most religions are suspicious of emotions. They see faith as essentially a thing of the mind. But emotions take us to the heart of AJ's teachings. What he's doing is setting up a sort of spiral where people get dragged down and down and down, and people are asked to plumb the depths of emotions from which many
Understood, Lady Anne. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
of them can never
Really sorry. Hope it wasn't too triggering.
escape. One of his techniques to draw people in is to demand that they find emotional trauma in their family history.
Let yourself feel what
This is common in cults too, trying to find things you're ashamed of to hold them against you or to manipulate you. Nexium did this. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Nexium cult. Famously, they were literally branding with hot iron, women in the cult, and like having them engage in sex with like the leader and stuff, and getting like not good blackmail, basically. Scientology also does this. That's like the whole point of the e-meter sessions, is to get you to admit and talk about things you're ashamed of or that make you feel strong emotions, potentially trauma. Again, this is all part of like ingratiating you into the cult. You are ripping yourself open in front of these people, and they are forcing you to be at your most vulnerable. And that's not comfortable. It's not okay in this context. Like, with your therapist or with loved ones, friends, family, it's good to, when you want to and are comfortable with talking about trauma or things that you find difficult. But in a scenario like this, where in public you are being forced to talk about these things in front of what are basically complete strangers when you first go, that's a trauma in and of itself. That's not something that we do as people, and there's usually a good reason for it. It's because in a situation like that, if you are that vulnerable and around people you don't trust, you can be manipulated. People can get control over you. It's not good.
what it was like to have to shut yourself down so much just to please your mother. Because that's what she wanted. That's what she wants you to do. Shut you down so much. And she was giving you all of these things, but she wants a heap of things in return from you, and that feels bad to you. So allow yourself to connect with that. That's it. And as you connect to that, you will start really connecting. That's it. And as you connect, that's how much rage is there. You see, this is the childhood rage now. You see that? That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. And this is the childhood rage that's still there.
This is disturbing. Yeah, it's a cult.
Feel it. Yeah, you feel that. Right.
Because a lot of times they can
And
take,
children
you know, they
are
can
being
take different
caught in
organs out
Miller's
of the body
web
and
as
feel the
well.
body seems-
What did you feel when that happened?
Well, that my dad didn't want my mother. And
Before he became Jesus, Miller was a Jehovah's Witness pastor, but fell out with the church over an incident with a prostitute. I first met him
In
and
fairness, he's Jesus. Hanging out with prostitutes is kind of par for the course.
Mary during the Brisbane
That's
floods.
the Mary Magdalene joke of the stream. You're welcome.
For many years, Miller made his money out of land development and a computer business. But now,
Actually, did you know Mary Magdalene wasn't a prostitute? That was a different Mary, and that's just a common misconception. I got in front of whoever was typing, you fuck.
he believes he holds the salvation of the world in his hands. Along with a growing number of disciples who are buying properties next to him, he lives outside Kingaroy in Queensland.
My first memories were having nails driven through my feet, and those memories began when I was just over 2 years of age. So I didn't put them together as, oh, I'm Jesus from that. And so I just sort of slotted it into the back of
Midnight
my
X, thanks
head
for
and
following.
went merrily on with my life. until such a time as I started having a lot more specific memories about my life, which happened when I was 33.
I am, through this stream, I'm trying to build on what I think in terms of his actual beliefs, because it's not uncommon for people to have a delusion, if you are delusional, that you're Jesus. That's like a pretty common delusion. There was actually a study done here in Michigan in Ypsilanti some decades ago, where they brought 3 delusional people who believed they were Jesus and had them in a group together. So all 3 of these people thought they were Jesus, and they all thought the other 2 were wrong or crazy or mistaken. Very interesting, but that's neither here nor there. A lot of people think they're Jesus, unfortunately. But also a lot of people just say that to manipulate people, and they're not mutually exclusive. It's probably more of an on-balance thing, how much it is one or the other. I've not made a judgment about AJ here yet.
3, really.
Is it true that your mother tried to commit you to a psychiatric ward?
Yes, it is true. Yeah. And these are things that I knew would occur. This is why I went, what? I've got to, I'm having all these memories of who I am, and I realise all of these different things coming up, and I also think about my future, and I go, boy, do I really want to bite this off again? My mum and dad in the first century followed me around, telling everybody I was crazy for most of my ministry. So my father didn't even change his mind until my passing in the first century.
Will Kale says, jokes on the cults. They can't use my shame against me due to my borderline schizoid personality disorder. Checkmate, cults.
Can you show me the nail marks in your hands?
Of course not.
That's the benefit of neurodivergence. You can't use your same tricks on me, wizard. My brain's broken.
The same body.
This is the three Jesus thing Hannah was talking about. Yep, the 3 Christs of Ypsilanti. That's the same town with the brick dick that I told you guys about. Gitara says, this is what Armored Skeptic was up to last time I saw anything from him, a multi-part series about the Green Man, only to wrap it up by implying heavily that he is Jesus. Is he still doing that? What's he been up to?
Miller spreads the word via the web, YouTube and seminars here and around the world. He claims there are 100,000 of his DVDs in circulation. He calls his message the Divine Love Path, which offers oneness with God through AJ's teachings.
How long have you been doing the path?
I'm just looking at everyone.
Hold it right up.
Praying for God's love and...
You need to pray for God's love. He's right there. Just be like, hey man, do you love me? Kind of weird. MH Darkbeast says, did you say Australian Jesus? Oh god, what is this?
Jesus Christ, what are you doing? You talking to me?
What do you reckon? Who else are you talking to?
Oh, keep it down, boys. I'm still a bit hungover after last night.
Yeah, that Last Supper nearly was me Last Supper.
Where were we? Lost it.
courage and strength, because I'm feeling a lot of fear right now.
It's like he's planted them with emotional triggers. It's like he's trained them like classical conditioning style to have these really intense emotional reactions at the drop of a hat. It's like a power. It's like he wants to manipulate all these people emotionally, and it's like he gets off on it. Like, look at him watching her do this. Look at him basically inducing some kind of weird attack on this woman and the satisfaction he gets from this control. It's sick. It's goddamn sick.
2 and a bit months.
2 and a bit months.
It's torn my life to pieces. I've lost my wife, I've lost my home, I've lost my family. It's been tremendously devastating. And yet he's calling this divine love. If Miller walked into the room right now, the way I feel right at this point, initially I'd have him up against the wall and I'd look at him right in his eye.
Do I think there's even a sliver of these people that know this is bullshit? People often grapple with cognitive dissonance, but the point in a cult is not to make sure you never doubt, but that doubt is stamped out when it comes up. That doubt is always overshadowed by your dependence upon the group and the unfounded trust that you have in the group caused by the brainwashing. So, I'm sure they have doubts occasionally, but I would imagine they are almost immediately snuffed out by the conditioning of the cult. And cults have self-protective stuff, thought-stopping mechanisms, and key phrases that they'll give people in order to make it easier for them to disassociate from those doubts.
And
Hey, Carcosian.
Throat right out.
Miller's reach is international. In San Francisco, I met Dugan McVerk, whose wife, Jennifer, fell under Miller's spell.
Dugan McVerk is the best name ever. I'm Dugan McVerk!
About Jen before she knew AJ.
Yeah, Jennifer is one of the most effervescent and lively spirits put into a body that I'd ever seen. With some one of the most amazing connections that I've ever had with another human being.
So in that relationship, what happened for yourself is it just triggered more of that childhood hurt that you felt with men.
Jennifer was introduced to Miller's teaching by 2 Australian friends and became captivated. She would watch and listen up to 5 hours a day.
We're gonna watch some of his talks and stuff after this. This is just to introduce who he is and stuff, but I have some videos directly from him that we'll watch and hear what he has to say directly.
Every day, there would be more downloads, and it was continuous. I watched Jen over the course of a month or so basically become so absorbed in it that it seemed to be the whole focus for her. It was everything that she would be listening to. She came to me with tears and said,
you want to know which people think they're Mary? I believe which Mary? Like his mom Mary or Magdalene? Because I believe he has his like main woman in the cult who he considers his partner, believes she's Mary Magdalene.
Dugan, he really is Jesus. AJ really is.
He has said that to other people, by the way. She's not the first woman that he's told was Mary Magdalene in a previous life.
Is Jesus.
Wasn't she the third Mary? He claims she's the second. I'm skeptical of that. I would imagine he's told that to many women.
Unbeknown to her husband, she began donating money to Miller and communicating by phone and email. Miller raised doubts about whether her husband was her soulmate.
Apparently, there's some requirement for soulmates, according to A.J. Miller, which brought into our relationship the innuendo of doubt as to whether or not she and I were soulmates. It was as if there was a third party sitting right between us all the time. And I was watching Jennifer basically just disappear.
Within 5 months, Jennifer left Dugan and planned to come to Australia to be with Miller. Desperate, Dugan contacted Rick Ross, America's leading culty programmer, to stage an intervention.
When Dugan first contacted me, he was very worried, and he was hoping that somehow, through an intervention, they might reconcile.
Jennifer, A.J. Miller is not Jesus.
I explained to Jennifer that after meeting many, many cult leaders that claimed to be Jesus or God, how could she be sure that Miller was in fact Jesus? And all she could respond is, the teachings make me feel good.
It's given me joy.
And there was a kind of euphoria that she experienced from listening to the tapes. And in a sense, this is a key to the way that Miller quells their critical thinking, induces the kind of self-hypnosis that I've seen. They put their headphones on and they listen to downloads for hours on end. And I think this has a mind-numbing effect on them.
I am out of here.
The intervention failed.
Basically, Miller sets himself up as God. He is Jesus Christ. He is the God-man. And if you disagree with him, you disagree with God. So if you have a spouse or a family member and they are critical of Miller, they have come against God. And therefore, they are not spiritually right for you. Or as Miller might say, they are not your soulmate.
Yesterday morning, I left my husband after 30 years. And
yesterday morning?
Yes. And I knew that it was something I needed to do because I was in an unloving situation, and I knew that I no longer really loved him, and so I wasn't living in truth.
Yep.
But it was still very hard and it was still very sad.
Yep.
I've talked to so many people around you who are married, some of them married for many years, and I asked them the question, how long have you been married? Some people say 25 years. I say, is your wife your soulmate?
And they say, I don't know.
They say, I don't know.
And that's okay.
It's not okay, AJ.
Why?
That puts a tremendous pressure. Marriages are breaking up around you because of this teaching about soulmates.
It will become very obvious to you whether the person you're currently with is your soulmate or not. And this is why it's so good to be in your current relationship and work through the issues until you get...
eyes. Watch when the more that the journalist, the more the reporter pushes back on him about some of this stuff, really look at his eyes. And to be clear, there's no like body language expert bullshit. I think all that shit's bullshit. But having known narcissists in my life, like my dad, right? You could just tell he really doesn't like being criticized or being pushed back against, and he puts on this facade of this kind, understanding person. But you can tell that behind the scenes, when you push his buttons too far, he explodes in narcissistic rage. That's speculation on my part, but it is speculation based on experience.
The point where you know that this isn't right. And when you know it isn't right, obviously that is the time for you to leave.
My teachings are all about love, developing relationship.
No, they're not, AJ.
They are.
They're not. A lot of your teachings...
Look at his eye. Look at him. Look at him. Look at him.
About addictions, about emotions, about fear, about struggle.
No.
You take people into a sort of holocaust, an emotional holocaust.
Yeah, I can't agree with that, David. I'm sorry.
Well, that's what I see.
When you start opening this soulmate side of you, what will happen is every other attraction that you've ever had will start to die.
It's creepy. I call that the how dare you stare. Like they're almost... They can't believe that someone thinks they're wrong. That's how I would describe it. They're trying to come to terms with, like, they're mad, but also they're almost confused. You think I'm wrong? How could you think I'm wrong? What?
Do you think you'll ever stop missing her?
No, no. I mean, I didn't find the person I wanted to marry until I was 56 years old. In my heart, no, I'll never get over missing her.
I'm really, 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 really amazed by just the stunning arrogance that this man has to claim what he's claiming. I mean, he's about as, how does one say? I don't think he would know Jesus if Jesus came and bit him in the arse.
Tell me about what you think about AJ. Who is AJ to you?
He's a bringer of truth. I feel that he is the Messiah. He's the messenger of God's truth.
to help us wake up?
Yes, he is. He is Jesus.
And you've just discovered that?
I've only discovered that, yes, since I've been on this path through AJ's teachings. That's how we come to God.
I think it's fair to call them fools, Mr. Duck Sauce. People fall into cults for a whole variety of reasons. People don't fall into cults because of a lack of intelligence. Intelligent people fall into cults all the time. People become emotionally vulnerable. There are times in our lives where we could have all been taken advantage of if we were in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people. And if you go around judging people because they wind up in a situation like this, and assume that you're immune because you're above that, you're the exact kind of people that get picked out for cults because you think you're above being manipulated. Just saying. Be a little kinder with the judgments, you know? People don't end up in cults, you know, because they really want their lives ruined. They're usually desperate and lonely and looking for something, some meaning, you know? And that's just part of the human experience, and they happen to get taken advantage of. Yeah, true trick. Yeah. You're still afraid of them? You can be. That's reasonable. I'm not telling you to not be wary and afraid of people who find themselves in cults, because unfortunately, once you become a part of that cult system, kind of like MLMs and stuff, you might be a victim, but you can also become a victimizer. So it's okay to be wary and kind of afraid of these people to some extent, but don't assume they're dumb or that you couldn't get, you know, tricked. Oh, you're afraid of the cult you joined 18 years ago? Gotcha. Well, I'm really sorry. I'm so glad that you were able to get out of it.
Now, AJ, do you always tell the truth?
I always attempt to, as far as I know it at that time, yes.
So, did you walk on water?
No.
Did you raise Lazarus from the dead?
Yes.
So, are you saying that you did some sort of miracles, but not other sorts?
There's a few miracles in the Bible I didn't do, but the rest...
The rest you did?
The rest I did.
Like...
But most of the miracles involving recovery of people's sight, the recovery of their limbs. But the walking on water is one of the ones I didn't do.
Yes.
Another one that I didn't do was turning the water into wine.
You didn't? So you couldn't give us a nice little...
You want to drop now, do you? No.
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 AJ Miller shares his home in central Queensland with a woman 13 years his junior.
The way that I first met AJ was at a talk in my parents' home. They had invited him to be there, and he just happened to be in our living room giving a talk, and that's how we met, yeah.
One of the remarkable ironies of your life is the role of your parents.
How old was she at that point?
Parents told me that that they had found out through someone else that AJ felt that I was his soulmate.
A former aid worker, she was born Mary Luck, but AJ...
Wow, he is singing that in the completely wrong key. What the fuck? Did you hear that? Like, I know out of all the things in this is not notable necessarily, but he is singing that in the wrong key.
A former aid worker. A former aid worker. She was born Mary Luck, but AJ has convinced her that she is Mary Magdalene.
So what's happened with you and your family?
I feel quite sad about it, David, yeah. Just that they don't accept what I want to do with my life at the moment. They don't agree with the way I'm living it.
But they introduced you.
I know, yeah. Sadly, my brother has said to me that he thinks I've gone mad, yeah. I have memories of being at the crucifixion. Remember being there and just the intense feeling of my soulmate, someone I feel very connected to, suffering immensely. Although I feel I suffered more than he did. But just because of the development in love that he had at that time. But for myself, it was excruciating to watch basically the annihilation of the person that I love the most. It feels like I might die from...
She has been absolutely, like, brainwashed. He has completely scooped out her identity and replaced it with this. That is so sad. I really hope she's able to escape him someday, because there's no way that the relationship they have is... In my opinion, I don't want to get sued by Jesus, in my opinion, behind the scenes, when the cameras aren't rolling, I mean, even when the cameras are rolling, it's pretty clear that this relationship is abusive. Like, the power imbalance here is insane. There's no way he respects her as a person. He doesn't seem to respect anyone as a person. I can't even imagine the horror she's going through when no one else is around except him.
Grief. And... it's so real.
You have convinced Mary that she was Mary Magdalene.
How has he convinced me?
You did not think that you were Mary Magdalene
I never
before you
even
met
told
AJ.
Mary she was Mary Magdalene.
You didn't tell her?
No,
he didn't.
I did not. So how can you say I convinced Mary?
Well, after she meets you, she begins to think that she's Mary Magdalene.
Well, that's her. I never spoke to her about it.
You had no thoughts about that beforehand, did you?
No, but to be honest, I really had no idea who Mary Magdalene was.
How many Mary Magdalenes have there been in your life?
There's only one Mary Magdalene in my life.
But there's been others. Is it two, three?
No, you're not asking me, you're telling me.
All right, I'm asking you.
Okay.
Did you tell other girls before Mary that they were Mary Magdalene?
I told, yes, definitely. One girl.
Mr. Mill.
That's definitely a lie, that it's just one other. There's this thing that you do when you lie, but, like, I'd compare this to, like, when I was an alcoholic. I guess I'm a recovered alcoholic now. It's been many years since I drank. But, like, when you're, like, an alcoholic and you're thinking of a lie if someone asks if you drank, and you're trying not to... If you're trying not to admit that you drank too much, you might tell them, oh, yeah, sure, I drank 6 shots last night. Which maybe that's a lie, and you drank a whole bottle, and in your head you think 6 shots isn't a lot, when in reality 6 shots in a night is actually quite a bit for, like, an adult, you know, or, you know, whatever. Your entire, like, view of what's normal is so off that even your mitigating lie is absurd, and you don't realize it. So when he says, oh yeah, I told one other woman she was Mary Magdalene, it's like he thinks that's better than the truth, which is it's probably many. But even admitting he had told any other woman this is a clear admission that he's a manipulative liar, and he doesn't realize it because his, like, Overton window for his own reality of what's normal is so shifted that even when he tries to be normal, he can't quite shift it back far enough because he doesn't have the wherewithal, the sense of norms anymore. His rage at the you telling me reminded that part.
Yeah. Or Mary.
But to be honest, I really had no idea who Mary Magdalene was.
How many Mary Magdalenes have there been in your life?
There's only one Mary Magdalene in my life.
But there's been others. Is it 2, 3?
No, you're not asking me, you're telling me.
All right, I'm asking.
H-Baird says, chat, you're all Mary Magdalene. Unless you aren't, otherwise you are.
Asking you.
Okay.
Did you tell other girls before Mary that they were Mary Magdalene?
I told, yes, definitely. One girl.
Mr. Miller seems to use his position as Jesus to get sexual favors from women that he is attracted to. And so he says, well, this woman is Mary Magdalene. Wait a minute, no, this woman is Mary Magdalene.
I find that, and I know that it's bigger than this. I know that he clearly has a thing where he wants power and he seems to get off on manipulating people. But it's a little funny that he's resorting to this to get people to have sex with him. Because, like, for his age, he's a decent enough looking dude. Very strange.
It reminds me of many other so-called cult leaders that I've run into over the years.
But I get it. It's about power. It's about controlling others. I know.
Who use their position of spiritual authority to get what they want sexually, financially, in whatever means they wish from the people that become their followers.
Am I your Jesus? No, there's no hierarchy here. I'm also Mary Magdalene. There's no Jesus. We're just a bunch of first century sex workers hanging out on the internet. You know how it be.
Miller has an inner core of about 30 disciples who have, in his words, forsaken all to be with him and to learn at his feet.
The key is to allow yourself to feel the sexual feelings, but understand when they're out of harmony with love, and when they're out of harmony with love, not to act upon them. Does that make sense?
There are hundreds more who believe he is Jesus, and many thousands who are intrigued by his teachings.
These are the reasons why divine love doesn't flow all the time to most people, is because they're unwilling to have the awakening as to the perception of their true self.
And there is a special 13, his chosen apostles, who Miller says have been reincarnated to spread his message.
I'm called Cornelius, and that was my name in the first century, my identity, my soul identity.
At Mergen, I met Cornelius and Jody, who left her husband to follow Miller. Both believe they lived at the time.
His name in the first century in Judea was Cornelius? That doesn't seem like a first century Judean name. Am I crazy? I don't think Cornelius. More like Planet of the Apes name. That was one of the guys, right? That was Roddy McDowell's character.
Of Christ.
So you knew Jesus? As such, I saw him and listened to what he was saying. I did come across him once, and I asked him about one of my servants.
He was Roman, maybe? You're right, I guess. I was thinking more Aramaic-sounding names, and I guess it could be supposed to be someone who was Roman.
And he healed the servant. I was just quite amazed by what he did.
You're right. I was thinking Aramaic. I forgot about the primary... one of the primary struggles in that time period, the occupation by Rome. I apologize. Kind of a big deal in the Jesus story, but whatever.
Until the time came where we were asked to go and execute him. And then when my troops had to go and nail him to the stake, it was like a pole. It was me that had to do that. And as I just went to get the spike and smash it into his hands, he just kept looking at me. And just so much love that came from him. To me, I couldn't do it. I just had threw the mallet down, through the spike down, and just
didn't pay attention in Sunday school.
Walked off.
I paid attention in one day in Sunday school, and it's the one day I remember, and it has nothing to do with Jesus. One day in Sunday school, I was quite young, and we were in kind of like a playroom area because I was like very young. And there was this older kid that was picking on other kids, and he wouldn't stop. And I pushed him into a wall, and he hit his head, and he cried, and he never picked on anyone again. And that was the best lesson I ever learned in Sunday school. And then we watched VeggieTales, which I liked at the time.
Which pretty much was my death sentence in those times. You don't do that.
So do you think he's Jesus?
I feel at times that, yes, he's Jesus, and yes, Mary's Mary Magdalene. And what I feel is the beautiful friendship we had together and the loss of that.
Let yourself feel
the power of Christ compelled him. It compelled him head first into a concrete wall. I wasn't a bully. He was bullying people, and I stopped him.
Disillusionment.
How dare you?
Feel.
He was older than me, too. Putting it out there. Where were we? Sorry, I lost my place. Here are the end. Just done Cornelius's bit.
How does it manifest in me? Well, in the past, it's caused me to do very unloving things. Spirits, basically, because I'm so open.
That's just elder abuse. He was probably 8 years old, and I was probably 4 or 5.
Spirits hook into me, basically step into my body and cause me to do things like, drink all night, take drugs, have sex with random women, just a whole lot of unloving things. And that's because of my soul condition, it's allowed a lot of dark spirits to do that.
Can you feel how once you start recognising the addictions you have in play, particularly the ones with spirits, how instantly the spirits up the ante?
Tell me about AJ. Who is he?
See, he's programmed them to have this implicit emotional reaction to him. He's conditioned them to have this response, and they take this response as further evidence of his divinity, because if he's not divine, why am I having this strong emotional reaction?
Whenever I think about him now, I just cry. I'm starting to have a soul, like an emotional realisation of who he is. It's overwhelming, because I know that only God can save me, but at the moment I feel that he's saved me through his teachings and his truth and love that I haven't experienced through anyone else. And I've been looking for a long time.
If I gather 10 of your people and start talking to them, within a minute they're talking about the struggle. And just about everyone I talk to is on the verge of tears.
But you notice that I don't view it as a struggle.
Poor Alex.
Sorry?
He's a little twitchy. He's finding it hard to keep his composure because he tries to have this mask on. He's supposed to be Jesus, so he's trying to give off this image as this like holier than thou, turn the other cheek, nothing bothers me because I'm divine. And he's just not able to hold it together very well in the face of this because he's not normally directly criticized because he surrounds himself with cult members who he's already, brainwashed.
I don't view it as a struggle.
Poor Alex.
Sorry?
That poor guy. He's just consumed.
Do you see this face? Ah!
I agree totally. He is. And I've talked to Alex many times about him allowing spirits to almost completely control his life.
I think you are at the early stages of becoming a cult leader.
Well,
I think we're beyond the early stages, but okay.
I don't see how I can be a cult leader when I ask everybody to actually engage their own desires.
You're on the way, AJ. You are.
That's pretty common for cults, is to make people feel like they're making decisions, but they're being guided by you towards a destination you've already predetermined.
You're beginning to gather all the means of control to yourself. You are the only source of knowledge within the group.
That is not true at all.
You are separating people away from their families.
No, I'm not.
How many people have I talked to? One of the questions I asked them was, what does your family think? Time after time, people are saying...
Now, David, read your Bible. What was said about me in the first century? You engage. Okay, what does it say Jesus did in the first century?
Yeah, that's right.
Say it.
Yeah, but Jesus said that your greatest enemy would be your family.
Why do you think that I said that in the first century?
But that's not you, and you are not Jesus.
No, that's your opinion.
Like, say someone was on Earth and they were in the 22nd sphere and they wanted to go to the spirit world, like with their soul. Can they do that?
This is one of Miller's DVDs. Not only is he targeting vulnerable adults, he is also drawing children into his warped world.
I wonder if he still sells these DVDs. I wouldn't mind having some weird cult content in my collection.
I was wondering if my mum and dad are soulmates.
Well, I might be able to tell you it, but I'm not going to.
There was another question that you might not be able to tell me, but if you really desired to die, but you knew that it's not good to commit suicide, would your law of attraction bring that to you?
Why does this child who's like 5 or 6 years old know what suicide is? Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Does God have a mum and dad?
Does God have a mum and dad? Now that is the hardest possible question I can answer. And I've lived now for 2,000 years and I don't know the answer to that question. You're having fun with this, aren't you?
You know, Miller is still a fairly new leader. I mean, he really hasn't fully developed his group. It's still in its early stages.
He with Goblins with 49 months says, "Morning, Hannah and Stannis. Morning, how you doing?"
But the idea that the group is coming together in a community and that Miller is developing a compound, in my opinion, is ominous. Again and again, historically, the most extreme expressions of cults have been in compounds, and some of the most terrible cult tragedies have been associated with that type of isolation.
This is the 600 acres that I was telling you about. It's currently owned by 4 different people, and what they're doing is they're just waiting for the organisation to be set up as a non-profit organisation, and then they want to donate the land to the organisation.
With money from his believers, Miller is acquiring properties here and around the world.
Sort of goes in that direction about a kilometre, and about that direction about a kilometre from here, and then it goes up the hill.
He calls them sanctuaries in readiness for the great cataclysm he's prophesying will soon engulf the planet. And from the chaos, he will emerge the saviour.
Let's look at some of the things I know that you've said were going to happen, you know, like that a continent was going to rise next door to Hawaii, cause a 100-metre tsunami that would sweep over Australia.
I'll go further than that.
Hold it Undying, thanks for following with your Canadian girlfriend account.
If you wish.
There's going to be an earthquake, a devastating earthquake, and so on. You made those predictions.
And all of these things are going to,
He gets sent the DVDs for large enough donations to the cult. Oh, damn it. Okay, yeah. I could never, in good conscience, I couldn't give money donations to the cult. I guess even if I bought the DVD, it would be that. So I can't do that either. If it wound up on eBay or something, I'd consider it. But yeah, I can't give a single dollar to organizations like this that will directly go to the suffering of the cult members. Jesus.
Going to happen.
The earth itself is going to change a lot in the next few years. And what you now know as countries, some of them will disappear completely, other ones will change completely.
On one level, A.J. Miller is just a buffoon. But on another level, he has found the ingredients that make men like him dangerous.
The divine love is the only substance that flows through the Holy Spirit.
And if he goes on, he will continue to separate parents from their children, wives from their husbands, and take money from his followers.
I think there are 2 AJs. One AJ is a friendly, open, sort of Aussie character.
Aussie bloke. Yeah.
There's another AJ who has the heart of a tyrant. And that's where you are heading.
I disagree
and
totally,
I see it.
David.
I am worried about what you're doing. I don't think it will end well.
For whom, David?
For you and the people around you.
Right.
And I'd like to meet you in 10 years' time and see.
Can I make a prediction for you, David?
Okay.
You're going to want me to meet me much sooner than 10 years' time.
And what does that mean?
Well, it just means that many of your current thoughts will change over the coming 3 or 4 years, in my opinion.
Are you saying that I will become convinced?
I'm saying that...
This video was posted 3 years ago. Guessing he never contacted him.
You will start thinking, wow, maybe there is something in this. So I'm perfectly happy to speak with you should you be here on earth in 4 years' time, or whether you should be in the spirit world in 4 years' time.
AJ, don't hold your breath, mate. Really. Really.
Can I say something to you? Many people in the first century have said exactly the same thing to me as what you are saying to me right now. And many times they've come back at a later point in time and wanted to have far more deeper discussions about the matter.
Okay. Look, thank you.
No worries, it's their pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, that poor woman. I'm on this thing where I'm really struggling with wanting to interview people like that. Conspiracy theorists, cult people. I like when I talked to Peter, that was so interesting. I don't know. Anyway, here's some videos from him and his is this the same woman? I think so. I'm not sure though.
Okay, first of all, the reason for this interview in a nutshell is that AJ, you believe that you were Jesus, and Mary, you believe that you were Mary Magdalene. And you've both admitted to a lot of people that when hearing this, they would probably think you're just clearly deluded. So can you please explain how you arrived at this understanding?
Well, Jeff, firstly, we don't believe we were Mary Magdalene or Jesus, but we believe we are. And I suppose that is the beginning of the first set of circumstances we need to explain, and that is we believe that people have one life, not many lives, and so therefore when you're born first on earth, usually your parents name you, and in my case, in the first...
Does AJ stand for Australian Jesus? It should! No, it doesn't though. His initials actually are AJ.
Century, my parents named me Yeshua, and then you grow and certain things happen to you in your life. So in my life I grew and certain things happened in my earth-based life, and then I died, as many do. I didn't die the same way that a lot of people died, but I died, and then I passed into the spirit world and I was still the same person, and then I progressed through the spirit world still as the same person, but just developing and growing just like any person does. And then we got to a point where both Mary and myself started recognising...
Your own Australian Jesus.
that we were one soul and not two separate individual souls. And that's something that we recognised before we passed from the earth in the first century. But and then Mary was born in the first century in the same manner, and she had a life in the first century, and she died, and then she arrived...
This is weird too. I haven't really brought this up. He's acting as though there is a textual, romantic, and sexual relationship in the Bible between Jesus and Mary Magdalene, and there is not. That's something that he didn't invent. Like, that's something that people have speculated about or, like, you know, made media about. Look at something like, again, I've mentioned it several times now, but Scorsese's The Last Temptation of Christ, right? But, like, he's acting as though it's textual within the Bible, and it's not. That's, like, Dan Brown shit. Like, it's not textual from the source of the Bible.
In the spirit world, and she continued to progress just the same, and we progressed together, recognising that we were a part of the same soul, which...
By the way, chat, Wednesday is my birthday. I work Tuesday, so we're not doing Tinfoil Tuesday on Tuesday this week. We are going to be doing Tinfoil Birthday on Wednesday for my birthday. So that'll be good. So I'll see you then.
We call soul mates, I suppose, but the reality is we're one soul in two.
And I also don't have electrolysis this week because my electrologist is on vacation. So I will stream Monday.
Bodies, if you like. And then we recognised after that development continued that we had an opportunity to return to the planet. If we were willing to take on a different set of bodies, we had an opportunity to return to the planet. And so when we returned, it was just the same process, the same person, Jesus and Mary, splitting into the two separate bodies, if you like, again, and then developing on earth again. But we're still the same person. It's all one life, and it has a memory of that entire life.
And you've always had this memory, even as a very young child in this life?
No, because you've got to understand how memories are created. For every single person who's ever lived, we are selective about our memories based on our emotional condition associated with the memories. So usually what you find happening on the earth today is that when memories are associated with trauma, then generally they're quite heavily suppressed. And sometimes when memories are associated with beautiful things that you've lost.
Will I be blowing out the tinfoil candles on a tinfoil cake? I would like that someday, a tinfoil themed cake. I'm pretty sure they make like baking sheets of like edible paper basically that you can put on things. You could probably get metallic or something. Thanks, Phoenix.
Often suppress the memory of those things as well. And then in addition...
and I do look cute today. My makeup looks good, god damn it.
Our day-to-day...
I'm a cute bitch.
Life sometimes isn't very...
I will feel good about myself. I demand it.
Eventful, and so even yesterday I doubt many of us could actually recall in detail what actually happened to us yesterday unless there were some significant events that we could recall. And so with regard to memory, what happens is there has to be some emotional allowance of the memory occurring. So,
and how old were you when this first occurred?
Well, for me with Goblin says, I'd like to see someone speak to him in ancient Aramaic, and then when he looks at them blankly, just ask why he doesn't remember his native language. I'm sure he would say something along the lines of, even Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't remember his native language after speaking primarily English for decades. You think I remember Aramaic after 2,000 years of no communication verbally in the spirit realm? See, you can just make shit up. That's the thing about being a cult leader. You can just say shit, as long as it's internally, like, logical.
Me, I had some memories occur when I was around 2 years.
Arnie isn't God? Are you sure about that? Have you seen his films? Have you seen Total Recall? Real good.
Of age in this life, but I didn't have an emotional allowance of what it meant. So I had memories.
Hot take. I think, as much as I love RoboCop and Starship Troopers, Total Recall, underrated Verhoeven. Really good stuff. Watch Total Recall and get your ass to Mars.
Of somebody driving nails through my feet, but I didn't have any emotional way of joining that together and realising what it was, given the brain of a 2-year-old is not probably capable of working out those particular things. And so that was the beginning of some of my memories. For Mary, I think hers were more around when she was 14 or 15.
Yeah, 14 or 15, I think. I had a specific...
I've lost some babies on my alien baby pink cowboy hat. I need to find them and glue them back on. If anyone finds any missing green alien babies, please send them to me. I don't know where they went. Anyway. Sorry. ADHD. My ADHD is really bad right now. Nope, we're focused.
Where I remembered being murdered, and
She remembers being murdered. Jesus Christ. I'm gonna go to one of his seminars, I think. Try. Check out this one. It's Jesus on what happens when people pray to him.
One thing I must ask you. When people pray to Jesus...
H-Bird says ask him about his gay grandparents. Their names are Jacob and Heli. It's in the Bible. Look it up. Yeah, that comes from, I think, different accounts of Jesus's lineage. But anyway.
Today.
Is he still going? Yes.
Can you feel it?
So he was asked, when people pray, can you feel it?
A lot of times when people are praying for Jesus with their words, their feelings are actually that they want a connection with God. So remember that it's the feelings that connect you with the person or with God.
So if they're praying to Jesus with the words, but actually having a feeling they want to connect with God, then often, they're connecting directly with God. When people are praying to me, they're often praying to me because they don't connect with God. They feel they can't connect with God, and they feel a bit more rapport with me rather than with God. And so generally, yes, I do try and respond to that.
God's not a big people person.
And in the spirit world, I also responded to that as much as I could. But obviously, when you've got hundreds of thousands or even millions of people doing that at once, you can't respond to every person. So the person with the strongest desire generally was the person I'd respond to. Yeah.
So there's no analogy as around.
No, well, there's literally hundreds of thousands of people in the spirit world who respond to those prayers.
Oh boy, there's someone in YouTube chat. CC Ryder says, this is all caps, by the way, such blasphemy. He's going to get serious consequences for that disgusting behavior. And what an idiot. He would knee that God has been and will always will be disgusting demonic agenda. He's not demonic. He's a cult leader. Demons aren't real. Please stop. And also don't use all caps. Please stop. Rick M, thanks for 21 months, says, what lunacy is this? A cult leader.
Saying they're Jesus, yeah.
Thank you so much for 21 months.
Who falsify that they are for lots of different reasons, because it gives them a feeling of power or importance, or it gives them a feeling of rapport with some...
Oh god, they're still going. Remember, Satan was the first narcissist, master manipulator, and prolific liar. Remember when the devil demanded everyone worship him or they go to hell? Oh wait, sorry, that was the other guy. My bad. Fuck, I'm sorry, my edgy 2012 atheist is coming out. Oh god. Not 2012, it's not 2012. You're better than this. You're better than this.
Earth that they want, or yeah, and most of them are in the first sphere. They're in the first sphere or in the hells, responding, and I find it really interesting. Sometimes people say, "Oh, but Jesus said to me such and such and such and such." And if you hear the words of what Jesus said, a lot of times it's actually very unloving what he said, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a good indication that you're not connecting to Jesus.
2012 was better, though. It really wasn't. You were just younger.
You just think you are, and it's actually someone else you're talking to, another spirit. And that's happening all the time. There's literally hundreds of thousands of people in the spirit world who respond to a person on earth and claim they're Jesus so that they can have a rapport with the person on earth.
Let's check out some of the stuff from their YouTube channel. They have like 3 YouTube channels. Jesus and Mary on sexually demanding women. Oh boy.
I have been made love to all my life, and I'm the passive recipient of sexual advances.
Yep.
She just said she's been made love to all her life, and she's the passive something of sexual advances.
Many women would feel this, right?
In my law of attraction with Graham is, forgive me for saying it out loud, Graham, shut down and doesn't make those attractions to me.
Yep.
So in our sexual relationship, he's not doing, I'm not the passive recipient, which is profoundly uncomfortable because I've only ever been that way.
Yep.
And he wants...
She wants to be a passive recipient in bed. I understand being a pillow princess, but this is a bit much. Recipient.
To ignite the passion in him.
Yep.
That's our law of attraction. My question is, how do you unlearn these lifelong trappings, for want of a better way of putting it?
Yeah. Well, firstly, both of you obviously have opposite injuries. This often happens in soulmate relationship where you get together with your soulmate and you work out actually you have totally opposite injuries. In other words, your injuries aren't compatible.
So you don't get along good with these injuries because they're not compatible with each other.
Especially when it comes to sex.
Especially with sex in this case. This is a beautiful thing to help trigger each of your emotions. Does that make sense? Otherwise, you'll just finish up having no sex.
We don't.
And it doesn't feel very good, does it?
No, I'm ready to leave.
So, yeah, so instead, deal with your, don't worry about Graham's emotions, deal with your emotions about why you do not want to give and why you expect the man to give to you.
What I'm saying to you is that I feel like I've been trained.
I know you've been trained, but there's an emotion. There's an emotion underneath it. It's an emotion of anger with men, an emotion of...
Is she complaining she doesn't receive good sex anymore? Yeah, it's very quiet. We'll switch to a different video. The audio setup on this is terrible. She's basically complaining, I think, that her partner wants her to be a more active participant in sex. I'm not touching that one. Alright, let's see what else we got from him. This is actually a Q&A with, the one who considers herself Mary Magdalene. Girlfriend, victim.
People often accuse AJ of claiming and convincing you that you are Mary Magdalene because you're young and pretty. How do you respond to these accusations?
Yeah, there's a lot I'd like to say about this because it's something that often people cast this sort of aspersion. I feel it's an aspersion on AJ's character, basically.
It is. We're saying he's a manipulative cult leader. You're correct. It's an aspersion.
Sometimes interviewers do it in like a cheeky kind of a way, like, oh, it's very convenient though, isn't it, that Mary's young and pretty and
Foxer says, Jesus, should I peg my husband? Jesus says, do unto others as you would have done unto you. Wink.
So I often feel afterwards, oh, there's so much I wanted to say in that moment, but it's a moment and it's gone. And so it's great that we have the opportunity here to talk more about it. Probably the first thing I'd say is that I don't feel particularly young and pretty myself. So.
Apparently they haven't been able to get any audio technicians into the cult because this is the second video from their channel in a row that has weird audio issues. The last one was too quiet and this one has weird interference.
I don't feel that he's hit the lottery in terms of attractiveness or youth even. I'm 35 in a couple.
That makes me a little sad that she feels that way. She's quite young and like, I don't like to comment on people's looks, good or bad, but she's like a pretty woman. Like, what? This makes me so sad that she feels so bad about herself.
Couple of months, so I wouldn't say that I'm particularly young, although I'm younger than a lot of people. Yeah. But you know, I sort of feel like I'm not just 35, I suppose. I feel that I have had a long life, and so I don't feel particularly young. But let's get on to really how I would respond to this accusation. And that is to say, firstly, that AJ hasn't really had it that easy, I suppose, since he met me. Like, it hasn't been... He didn't wander up to me and say, oh, you're Mary Magdalene, and I fell into his arms and said, this is wonderful, and let's...
No, grooming typically takes a longer period than that.
Please go and have lots of sex.
It wasn't the movies.
No, it wasn't the movies or anything resembling it, except maybe a little bit like a horror movie, maybe.
A bit extreme.
A bit extreme, maybe. But let's explain a bit more.
Yeah.
So... when I met AJ, I was really confronted about this idea of him being Jesus, me being Mary Magdalene in a public way. I felt really afraid about it. I felt really confronted about, now that I started to allow all these emotions that I'd been suppressing all my life, what was coming up. Things were coming out. I was angry for the first time in my life, really, and I found that really disturbing and distressing of what's going on. You know, I'm feeling a lot of things that I can feel were already inside of me.
I do want to point out the person on YouTube now said would love to be in Westchester and their username is CC Ryder. Westchester County. CC here, Westchester County.
And I had...
Now I can't tell if that person is specifically trolling me, or if it's a coincidence, or if it's Chris.
some sense of wanting to grow, but growing this way seems
Chris here,
very
CC
confronting.
Westchester County. The earth is flat, you fools!
I also, as we've mentioned in previous questions...
Also, I would like to point out, in case you did not understand my verbal instructions, on your keyboard, ignore how dirty my keyboard is, please. On your keyboard, you have this key. There's the tab key, and under that is the caps lock key. You want to hit that, because your caps lock is on. Don't type everything in all caps, you goddamn boomer. It makes you sound like you're yelling everything.
You know, the way AJ wanted to have a relationship with me was based on no expectations, no barter, no codependency, just love and desire. And for me, that was really
cool
confronting.
Keyboard. Thank you. It looks like a typewriter. I love it.
As well, I felt like vulnerable. I couldn't. There was no way I could manipulate this man, and all he wanted to do was love me. But that felt really confronting. And because I was really afraid of how my family was reacting, how I felt the world would respond to these things, I got really afraid and then angry. I wanted to not have a relationship with him. I broke up with him like about 3 times. So we're in and out of relationship. It was quite, you know, it wasn't sort of this walk in the park for AJ. He was coping with a lot of emotions that I was throwing his way and a lot of blame.
It really sounds like they've had, you know, issues, and he blames everything on her, and she has entirely internalized that and thinks that any problems they have ever had are her fault and that she's a burden to him. I imagine he has reinforced this behind the scenes, that she should be grateful that, you know, he deals with her. That's the vibe I get.
And a lot of desire to control him. So I wouldn't say that, you know, it probably felt very convenient to him. I know how he feels, and he feels, or he knows that I'm his soulmate and he doesn't want anyone else. But I've often said to him, babe, if you were going to choose, you know, if you were some evil mastermind and you were going to choose people to be members of these 14 people who've returned to Earth, you could have made better choices.
No, don't ban them yet, Mr. Blast. I'm enjoying what they have to say.
Tenacious and stubborn and not very humble, and I get angry, and, you know, a lot of us are like that because there's a lot of fear in us.
Green guy with $1 tip says, hey, Hannah, I'm going to go garden and plant. You could care less. And that's also in all caps. Thank you.
A lot of us resist a lot. And so when anyone is in resistance to their feelings, they can become pretty nasty. Yep. So, yeah, so I wouldn't say this implication that AJ's just chosen me because I'm young and pretty. Yeah. That doesn't really match. There's actually a lot of other women who would like to be with AJ.
Yeah, he's got to be telling that to her. Like, there are so many women in our group that would love to be with me. How dare you not worship the ground I walk on? How dare you have an opinion or whatever? Do you know how many women would like to be with me, he thinks to himself? Or says to her? What an asshole.
Find him really attractive and who would like to feel like they're Mary Magdalene. So he could have, you know, if he was going to go shopping for a relationship, he could have done that. And he didn't because that's not the nature of the man. But certainly he's not been in a situation where it's all been, I've been adoring of him. And there's been times in our relationship, as I said, where we've split up, where we haven't had sex for periods of 6 months because I've been working through an issue, where I've...
Oh, don't worry. I'm sure you weren't having sex during that period. But he was.
You know what?
You think that the cult leader controlling a bunch of women around him wasn't having sex for 6 months? Sorry. I know she's a victim. She's been brainwashed. Just sometimes the audacity of the claims is kind of shocking to me that she believes that she believes he wasn't cheating on her through that time when he almost certainly was.
I've really resisted love, and that hasn't always been easy for him either. And so this implication that he's just sort of chosen a convenient partner so that he can have lots of sex, or, you know.
He's talking about their relationship only in terms of his feelings toward her and how poorly she's treated him. Yes, this is the narrative that he has constantly fed her, and you can tell.
Feel important because he has a pretty girlfriend or something. That's not the case at all. Simply based on the fact that it hasn't really been an easy time for him in terms of me just opening my heart and falling in love. The second thing I probably want to say about that is that AJ's quite a catch himself. He's a gorgeous looking man who is just got a beautiful heart. All he desires to do is to love and to serve others. And so when people say, you know, it's quite convenient for you, AJ, that Mary's young and pretty, I think, well, it's quite convenient for me. You know, I feel like I won the lottery when it comes to soulmates. I feel like this is amazing, you know. And while, as I said, in the beginning times, I didn't always feel like that. You know, I felt...
You must be horribly threatened. Well, it's not... I don't think it's as direct as that, although there might be physical abuse. We have no idea. But, like, it's more that you can tell he has made her feel that any autonomy or doing things he doesn't like within a quite strict idea of what she should be, he manipulates her and makes her feel like she's the problem. He makes her feel like she's hurting him, as opposed to him being a dictatorial psycho, which is what's realistically happening.
Really a lot of resistance and quite angry a lot of the time. These days, when people say that, I think, wow, you know, I feel like he's a pretty amazing, attractive guy himself. So I don't feel like he's sort of, I don't know. That's what I always want to say anyway. Probably the biggest thing, though, in responding to these kind of comments is just that it casts a lot of... it's sort of an underhanded way of accusing AJ of being someone who is just is preying on women in some way for sex, or for, you know, he just wants to be in the company of someone who's young and pretty, rather than seeing that he actually wants to have an adult, loving relationship with his soulmate, and that there's only one of me, and that even in times when it seemed like we couldn't be together, he wasn't looking for someone else. And in fact, before we met, he was celibate.
I can't believe she believes that. She believes he was celibate.
For 5 years.
Yeah.
Because he knew he
didn't
want to have a relationship with
Me too.
anyone but his soulmate. And then obviously when we met, we're still working towards having a really harmonious and loving relationship. So, yeah, I suppose the main thing I feel when people say these kinds of things is it's often a simple offhand kind of a comment, but there's a lot in it that is really kind of insulting to AJ, and towards me. It kind of makes me seem like I'm just a bit of a bimbo.
Is the Cult Information Institute run by Scientology? I actually don't know. I don't know. That sounds like something Scientology would do to try and make sure that they control somewhat the narrative surrounding Scientology being referred to as a cult, because it is.
But it also implies that he's sort of chosen me, and that's not the way it works with soulmates. God created the two of you together.
Hold on, I am going to check one thing to make sure this isn't CC.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Well, same day, same time.
I'm actually going to run and use the bathroom real quick. This should just loop, so I'll be back in a minute. Be right back.
This is not to scale, of course. When I grew up, the solar system was stationary.
All right, honey, come on.
The sun was standing.
Why don't you stop this bullshit?
Idiot. Shouldn't you give me like 5 minutes?
No, you've had it all morning, and I'm just freezing, and I'm hungry, and it's time to start cleaning the house.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Well, same day, same time. This is not to scale, of course. When I grew up, the solar system was stationary.
All right, honey, come on.
The sun was standing.
Why don't you stop this bullshit? Idiot.
Shouldn't you give me like 5 minutes?
No, you've had it all morning, and I'm just freezing, and I'm hungry, and it's time to start.
Cult Awareness Network is a Scientology front after they were sued into oblivion. That's such a yikes.
And there's no choice about who the other half of you is. And both of us respect that. And AJ really loves that. And that's not, that's a beautiful part of him.
Just a peach with $1 tips is I feel like she's the one who stayed the longest. The others just got out when it was easier to leave, maybe. Maybe.
His character, that he wants to love only one woman who is the other half of him, and that he's willing to be
That's the only time we've seen Cece's wife in a video. We've heard her before, but I think that's the only time we've seen her.
really humble to whatever comes up in that process so that we can be closer together. And that's very different from the accusation that somehow he's selected a young pretty girl and convinced her to be Mary Magdalene.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's quite a yuck comment actually. Like I feel pretty gross.
Yeah.
As you say, it's pretty yucky towards AJ as well.
Yeah.
And once again, as you say, so many of these comments are made underhandingly, or the person who makes them, and I've been responsible, not that comment, but other comments, without even thinking what, like, you don't realise the impact of what you're actually saying. And just the put down that
it is supposed to be a put down. People know what they are doing. They are trying to intentionally impugn the character of a manipulative cult leader. They're not doing it as a mistake, like, oh no, I hurt his feelings. They are directly trying to hurt his character in public perception, because it should be, because he's a cult leader.
Towards you guys, but to anybody, you know, that you make these comments to.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot that can be revealed about our underlying beliefs in little offhand comments, and I feel there's a lot of cynicism on the planet about. A lot of people don't believe that people could just be good and be motivated by a desire to be good people. And because of that, there's a lot...
People are often motivated primarily by a desire to help people or be good people. The problem is people are often mistaken or manipulated with those intents in mind. Like, oh, this person wants to be a good person and do good things. I'll convince them that my program is a good thing and the only way to help the world. Probably did go into this with good intentions. That's how a lot of people get trapped in cults.
Suspicion cast at AJ.
Isn't CC Gen X? He is, I believe.
A lot of the time.
Yeah. You get sucked in it as well, I suppose. Well, it's both of you really, isn't it? I mean, though in this particular one they are claiming you're more of a bimbo than an intelligent half of a soul.
Yes.
They're really not. They're not saying that. They're saying he is manipulating you. That doesn't mean you're dumb. That doesn't mean anything bad about you. It means you're a victim.
Yeah. I think also because AJ, as we've said in other questions that we've been talking about today, because I have been reluctant to be forward, because I have wanted to hide in the background, because I've wanted to sort of control him into not being as transparent and open and direct with people. And he hasn't listened to that, and he has been open and direct with people. A lot of people, he often cops a lot of the suspicion or the attack, because in a sense, my lack of certainty, it's not really a lack of certainty.
She looks tired. That makes sense. She looks exhausted. And I'm not saying she looks bad. I'm not making a comment about her looks in a negative way. I'm just saying it looks like she has been run ragged.
My fear-driven actions mean that people don't take me seriously.
Yeah.
And that's certainly something that I'm working through now. Like, I feel that I want to be counted as, you know, as myself, and this is what I believe and this is who I am. But that's not always been the case. So he's sort of copped a lot of, and also I suppose saying you're Jesus on the planet today is different to saying you're Mary Magdalene.
Yeah.
There's so much expectation and fear about, expectation of who Jesus should be, and then fear
No
about,
one made him claim to be Jesus. You're really gonna do a "oh, woe is him"?
a man saying that he's Jesus and what dark motivations he might have. It means that AJ is actually exposed to a lot of people's attack and ridicule, and it's almost like he has to prove himself 70 times over, and even then it's not enough for people to trust him or to believe him. Yeah.
Yeah. Big challenges, hey? Well, it's not really. Well, that's my stuff speaking, because I don't think that, just from our conversation today and the questions that you've answered, the more that you are owning who you are and being yourself, it's actually like the more that I'm around you, it's like, well, yeah, I'm only thinking this now, it's like that you don't question you so much.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I know with Jesus, I can see it's my issues. You know, he's very firm and whatever, and the same with you. It's like when you guys are very firm, or when you're firm with who you are or whatever, then it does put it back on the person, if they're willing to see that, I think.
Yeah, it depends on how humble the person is.
Yeah.
But I think probably you were saying about the challenges.
I'm gonna move on to another video. Let's get Jesus back in the mix here, shall we? What's the difference between a spirit and a ghost, and are ghosts real?
Device provide and the subject.
What's the difference between a spirit and a ghost? Are ghosts real?
Well, yes, ghosts are real. We need to look at the difference between the spirit.
See you, CC
person
Ryder.
and
Thanks
a
for the
ghost.
fun.
The reality is, for most instances, a ghost is an apparition of the spirit person's body. In other words, it's the spirit manifesting a physical form so that a person can see the spirit with their own eyes. But because the spirit usually who does this is not in a very good condition, they can't gather together all of the substances of the universe in order to make a solid form, and so it's a form that you can see through. It's a form that's ghostly in its appearance. So for the majority of so-called ghost viewings or sightings, it's the actual single person, a spirit, trying to manifest a physical body in order to display itself to a person on Earth, but not managing energetically to create enough energy to do it. And as
If it's not from the ethereal realm, it's not a ghost, it's sparkling ectoplasm.
a result, the apparition is an apparition, ghostly type of apparition that the person on Earth can see through. However, it is also possible for a group of spirits to manifest one ghostly apparition. So a group of spirits,
Like 3 kids in a trench coat getting into an R-rated movie?
Can, by the cooperative use of their own energy systems, gather together a form which they then animate through their own expression. So a ghost, if you like, can also be a combination of a collective group of spirits manifesting enough energy in order to create an apparition of some kind.
Like a ghost megazord.
Now, the reason why a group of spirits would be needed to do that is because the energy from one of those spirits is not strong enough to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they do in order to, generally, these kind of spirits, in order to scare somebody or to, influence somebody negatively, what they do is they get together as a band of spirits just for the purpose of creating the apparition and then animating the apparition so that a physical person can see it. So remember that the apparition is a physical manifestation of energy. It's not a spiritual energy, so it's very, very different than a person who is mediumistic, who can see a spirit person's body. If we are mediumistic, we're actually looking at the spirit person's body, not an apparition of the spirit person's body, not a manifestation of the spirit person's body. Whereas an apparition...
Wow, this is a lot of word salad. People just get sucked into this crap. What is divine truth? That's a big question. Don't you love that he put this together, too? He made this channel and has one of his cult followers interview him as though this is some objective reporting. It's literally just one of his followers feeding him questions so he can spout whatever he wants. I'm sure he writes the questions.
What is divine truth?
Well, that's the most important question of the series, other than the question, what is divine love?
Is this interview more recent? I feel like he's aging into becoming Robert Carlyle, no offense to him. This is actually an older video. These are about 10 years old.
So I feel what is divine truth is
He's been at this a while.
Such an important question to answer. So the answer is that divine truth is God's universal truth. Now that sounds very almost religious in its nature, but it's not. The reality is God's universal truth is always...
I don't know, it sounds pretty religious to me, but whatever. That's my favorite trope, is when a religion tries to claim it's not a religion, like they're embarrassed they're a religion. That's wild to me. Like, if you're gonna have a religion, that's fine. I don't, I'm an atheist, but like, whatever. People believe all sorts of things that aren't true. As long as you're not hurting people, whatever. I'm open to having a conversation about it and debating it. I think that's fun. But fundamentally, I don't really give a shit until you start hurting people. What I don't get is when someone has a religion and they're like, oh, it's not a religion. Christianity isn't a religion. It's a relationship with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Like, that sounds like a religion. Like, I get it. It's fine. It's just, it's a little eye-rolling, You're trying to etch out your own special category where it's like, all those other people's spiritual beliefs are religions. My spiritual beliefs are just true. It's a little narcissistic.
always logical. It is always scientific in its nature. It is always mathematical in its nature. It always is based on the reality, but not human reality. It's the reality of how God sees everything, not the reality of how we see everything, because that's often imaginary rather than reality. Mm-hmm. Divine truth has a lot of qualities and attributes, and we're going through this series to discuss the qualities and attributes of divine truth. So rather than me mentioning them now as in part of what is divine truth, let's look at a few of the attributes so that we can understand what it means. Firstly, one of the attributes of God's truth is that God's truth is infinite in its nature. And because God knows all the truth, humankind is only ever going to be in this process of discovering truth. And we will keep discovering truth for the rest of our existence and still not find out all the truth. So any book that claims to be the beginning and the end of all of God's truth is totally illogical. Right from the beginning. So the Bible itself claiming to be the end of God's truth, aside from some comments in Revelation, of course, it depends on your interpretation.
Why is he being cheeky about it? Jesus Christ. Okay. Oh, let's see some more interaction with him and his followers through this video.
2,000 years after the crucifixion, men claiming to be Christ are still making headlines.
Man charged with trying to assassinate Obama believed he was Jesus. All right, then.
And one in particular has made more headlines than most. I've been given exclusive access to what the media has described as one of the world's most worrying cult leaders, Alan John Miller.
Actually, I've had a 2,000-year life, and my name is Jesus as well. So I was born Jesus of Nazareth in the 1st century.
He has been compared to David Koresh.
He's got the look for it.
The cult leader whose followers died in a mass fire at Waco.
Isn't the 2000th anniversary of the crucifixion not for another 5 years? If you literally believe Jesus was born in, like, the year 1... Well, if it was 1 AD, then it would have to be 2034. Because there's no year 0. right?
He's been described as the face of evil.
Churches are going to do a bunch of weird shit for that, though, aren't they? I hadn't even considered that. The, like, you know, roughly celebrating or venerating the 2000th year anniversary of the crucifixion. There's going to be a lot of cults and churches that do shit for that, I bet. Worried about the cults.
With apocalyptic predictions for the end of the world, he breaks up marriages and uses his followers for sexual favours.
A friend of mine came to me one day and he said, I've met this bloke and I reckon he's Jesus.
You know, how arrogant is that, and what a wanker.
I have read he has a compound and his followers are setting up home with him. Alan John Miller, or AJ as he likes to be known, believes he is Jesus and he's deadly serious.
The Roman soldiers weren't certain as to whether I'd died or not yet, and so they actually speared the side of my body.
It's funny that he's saying that like it's a personal account. Like, that's literally from the Bible, the part where, like, Jesus gets stabbed in the side and what looks like water comes out. That's part of the Bible. He's acting like he's just remembering this and didn't pull this from, you know, the Bible.
Up into the heart.
And the world's media are taking note as he broadcasts.
I think the up into the heart thing is also a reference to the fact that some people believe that the liquid that is described as coming out of Jesus after the stabbing of the spear might have been liquid coming out of the pericardium of the heart.
His teachings on the net.
I'm Jesus, but most people call me AJ or Alan John Miller.
I'm claiming to be Jesus, that's true.
How does it feel, though, Jesus talking to us today and everybody watching at home and knowing that 99.9% of that audience are mocking you?
Does he have a stigmata? Other people have asked him that, and he goes, no, that was a different body. So, can't get him with that. Again, you can't, it's when you try and gotcha cult leaders with stuff like that, they are playing by different rules than us. We, because we are, you know, we are, how do I want to put this? On some level, we are driven by social pressures, like shame, like guilt. You know what I mean? We care if we lie to people and we don't want to do it. For the most part, people try, I think, to have internal consistency as much as they're able to, and try to be honest as much as they're able to. That handicaps us when you're in a discussion with someone who's a bad faith actor, because they can just say whatever they want. You pointing out they're a hypocrite or the thing they're saying doesn't make sense is irrelevant when they're in a position like this. They already have people who believe them, no matter what. It doesn't matter. It's like trying to point out that Trump is a hypocrite. It's like, people who follow him don't care. He doesn't care. It's irrelevant. It's not a gotcha because they don't have the moral conscience in order for that to matter for them. They've been affected by either social pressures or something else to just not care. So it doesn't matter. The rules of their game are different.
Are laughing at you or saying, this man is bonkers and she must be as bad as him.
He's invited around the globe to teach divine truth with his partner, Mary Luck, who also believes she is reincarnated.
Oh my God, this is true. Like, this guy is Jesus and I remember it. And actually, I remember who I am. Like, I understand who I am now.
I had to agree to be filmed and hand over my footage in order for me to get exclusive access to AJ and Mary. I travelled 10,000 miles to his remote home in the Australian bush, an area known as the Bible Belt, to find out the truth behind the media claims. If in fact the divine truth is a cult, and AJ is a cult leader, then I wanted to know what AJ was trying to teach, why people were listening, and whether he is any different from the many men who have claimed to be Jesus before.
And if he's really...
I just want to point out, no one in that scene can dance. Like, I don't think this is a cult thing. This might just be a white people thing.
He was trying to teach.
Well, holy shit, look at the
why
dancing.
People were listening. And whether he is any different.
Look at Shaggy go!
From the many men who have claimed to be Jesus before.
And if he's really Jesus, and I really believe that, holy crap, I really got to embrace all the things he's saying.
AJ used to be a property developer and IT professional, but gave it all up 10 years ago in the realisation he is Jesus. 5 years ago, he met Mary Luck.
We've watched this one, haven't we? No.
Believes she is Mary Magdalene. We took a 3-hour drive.
Possible you've seen it, but we haven't watched this before.
Into the heart of the bush and the Australian Bible Belt, to AJ and Mary's remote home, where it has been reported police were called because screams were heard from the Divine Truth community of worshippers who have set up home in his compound. I was eager to find out the truth.
Remember we watched some uncritical documentary on this guy before? Are you sure we watched it on here? Because I do not remember watching this on stream.
His worrying claims.
I do think I watched this at some point, but not on stream. When have I even covered this guy before? Australia has a Bible Belt? It does, yes.
It was soon apparent there was no community, no worshippers, and no compound.
It's incredible that a claim can be made like that, I find.
Are you thinking of another streamer maybe serving sass? Possible another streamer has watched it.
And I'm seeing
that happens sometimes where people, that happens like Jeff Holiday, who does the Wingnut Roundup, which is another show where, you know, he looks at weird things. If you've not seen it, check it out. He's great. But I've seen people who are fans of both me and Jeff. Sometimes Jeff will watch something and then someone will come over here and be like, "You watched this, Hannah?" And I'll be like, "No, I haven't." And it was because Jeff watched it and they kind of mixed it in their heads. So it might be something like that.
Yeah.
And
it was a purposeful claim. The people who made the claim stayed.
I really want to do something together with Jeff because, you know, we cover a lot of the same stuff. We're in the same wheelhouses when it comes to kind of weird internet groups. I think that would be real fun to get together and do a wingnut tinfoil together sometime.
Days. So they actually knew
that we just have a little 2-bedroom house with no fences and just we live here.
Christians and Muslims alike believe in the second coming of Christ, and for millennia, hundreds of men have professed to be Jesus himself. It is written in the Bible.
I've not seen Passions.
Jesus said, "Take heed that no man deceives you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ." I was interested as to know why AJ thinks he's any different.
In
Brazil.
Central America, there's a guy in Brazil. There's a guy in Russia. There's many people. There's even in Australia. I've had 3 people ring me up claiming to be me.
Always fun. Sorry, it just annoys me that every Jesus thinks they're the Jesus and everyone else is delusional. It's the obvious solution to the cognitive dissonance, but like, again, it's eye-rolling from the outside looking in. It's like, come on, man.
So that was interesting.
Oh, I know he knows I exist. I can reach out to him at some point. We've talked before. We've worked together before. Like, I know Jeff, like, as a colleague of some sort.
But in each case, they don't have the extensive knowledge that I have. And they also don't display much love in their day-to-day activities or day-to-day life.
So
the guy in
worshipped.
Brazil, he just sits on his throne, actually. He has
With
a throne with a
crown
on his head, and he sits there and people come and kiss his hand and he wants to be worshipped. It's not right for somebody to value me more than they value themselves, for example.
Yeah.
Most of the time I get the opposite emotion, that I am stupid and an idiot. and why would anybody want to listen to me at all?
So, can you
We should force all the Jesus impersonators to live with each other. Ooh, new hit reality show.
To me,
Christ House.
Why you believe that you are Jesus of Nazareth?
Well, I don't believe I'm Jesus of Nazareth. I know I'm Jesus of Nazareth.
Do we need to get into the belief versus knowing debate again? Do we need to talk about this?
I suppose it's the same way in which you know that you're Thomas Leader, and that is that you've had a life experience that you remember. And for me, it's the same kind of thing, with the exception...
But he has other evidence, like a birth certificate, you know, other people who grew up with him that know who he is. You just started saying it one day. So.
That I remember my life of 2,000 years rather than just the 50 years that I am right now. So I remember my life in the first century. Shortly after I was born, around 2 years of age onwards, I remember pretty clearly most of the events that occurred in my life in the first century. I remember a lot of the events that occurred in the spirit world through my 2,000 years of life. I don't remember all of them yet because I've still got some fear associated with remembering some of them. But, and I also, of course, remember my life in terms of returning back to earth, how that felt and the experience of that, and also then having this life. So it's all to me one life. It's not like I believe I was somebody else. I know who I am, and I know how old I am, and so forth. And I remember all of those events throughout my life.
But it's not just AJ who believes he has returned to earth. His partner Mary believes she is Jesus' wife from the first century, Mary Magdalene.
To tell the rest of the world very openly and plainly, I'm Mary Magdalene, there's only one of me, and I am here, I have come back. I wanted any other answer, and I searched, I shopped for other answers, I read books, I looked at, is it possible that I have a mental illness?
More likely, and I don't know her mental health status prior to this, but more likely you were just manipulated. Again, anyone can become brainwashed if they're vulnerable. Happens.
Is it possible that somehow I've created this experience because I have a deep underlying desire to be special or have attention? I don't
know if attention, but certainly I think feeling special is a pretty common thing in cults, feeling belonging, right?
Looked at that, and I think that was fairly easy to resolve because I was pretty much hiding from everyone and hiding this experience from everyone for a number of years after we met.
Was coming to terms with the fact that you were Jesus easy?
No, very, very hard. There are many, many times when I just felt like it was impossible to actually even say. I'm completely aware that there are 1.5 billion Christians on the planet. I'm completely aware of how the majority of those feel about Jesus, that they believe Jesus is God. I'm completely aware that there are other people on the planet who don't even believe Jesus ever existed. And if you look at if you analyse anybody's opinions of Jesus on the planet today, I would say almost categorically.
Really curious how old she was when they met, because at the time of this documentary, he's about 50. Yeah, and they've been together at least like 10 years at this point. Yeah, I'm very concerned about how old she was when they met. I mean, it's clear the power dynamics are fucked either way, but I'm getting the sneaking suspicion that she may have been a minor when they met, or at least close to it. Lilac says, I said I wasn't going to use TikTok anymore after Trump bought it, but people are going crazy over rich people apparently allegedly eating mermaids. Still don't use TikTok. I don't care what stupid things stupid people believe on the internet. That's not true. I care deeply, obviously, but you still shouldn't use TikTok.
That nobody knows who Jesus was. And here I was knowing myself, knowing who I am, and knowing that it basically rubbed out everybody's conception of what was true about Jesus. And so I spent the next 3 years trying to avoid my identity, but at the same time trying to teach God's truth. Basically, I'd talk to them for 4 hours about all these fascinating subjects, and they became more and more emotionally embroiled in the conversation and more fascinated by the conversation itself, only to find out in the end that this nutter in front of them thought he was Jesus, which then caused them to think that was a whole waste of 4 hours now, and they, and they got very disappointed and very upset, as you can imagine. So I found it was far better just to say up front, I'm Jesus.
That's borderline like Michael Scott. Like, this is how... He's just acting very much like weird. Sorry.
Now let's get on with talking about some other subjects.
He's like if Jesus was Michael Scott. Does that make sense?
AJ and Mary were holding a 2-day seminar in a local town. I was keen to speak with the people that listened to their teachings to see if in fact AJ was a cult leader. It was soon apparent this was no amateur production. Though the seminars are free, AJ and Mary live by donation.
There's a lot of those DVDs, so they might be out on the internet somewhere. I'll have to try and find them.
As to focus on...
Although I'm trying to think the demographic of people who go to this, are they the same kind of people who rip that to the internet? I don't know.
Spreading divine truth. And I'm told they use these funds to give to others and to distribute divine truth material. I saw no obligation to donate, but the people still did. AJ's teachings focused on people's emotional addictions, their fears of needing to be loved, to have control, their guilt, anger, and unless they confront and process these often extremely painful emotions, they will never be free.
Bring us the holy DivX rip.
Never know the truth that lies beneath, or feel the purity of their soul. I was interested to hear why, on the surface of it, people would choose such a painful spiritual path.
So can you tell me why you chose to find out more about the divine truth?
Basically because my life wasn't working. At this stage, our son had just died.
Again, I know I'm belaboring the point a bit, but this is what cults do. They'll find people who are in the darkest place in their lives, and they will offer them a hand. And it doesn't matter that they're telling lies and that the hand is just trying to pull them into a bad situation. People are desperate. They feel crushingly empty or sad, depressed, like nothing makes sense, and cults offer answers.
Our son was stillborn, full term, and my partner just wanted to know. She just wanted to know why this thing had happened to our son. So she just went to a seminar on the Gold Coast. That's where we were living at the time. And she just went straight up to him. I didn't go because I was in judgment. I said, this guy saying he's Jesus. I thought, how arrogant is that? And what a wanker type thing. And not really now, realising now how arrogant I was, just prejudging someone. But, understandable, because this is what's the whole world's going through. And being out here for 2 years now, listening and meeting him and having conversations, he's probably the most loving person I've ever met in my life. I mean, look, I have a part in the death of my son, and because I didn't know anything about God.
He's blaming himself for the tragic stillbirth of his son, despite it not being his fault at all. Terrible, 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 terrible.
Beforehand, so it's not about AJ at the end of the day, because he's just a person who's saying he's Jesus. And it's taken me 2 years to sort of be honest that maybe he is, but then not get hung up on that, because it's about the message and the truths.
It must be very difficult to feel that you are, in part, responsible for the loss of something so very precious to you.
Definitely. It's not having any understanding or awareness that myself personally, you affect everything around you. It's not the other way around. It's not the world affecting me or affecting you. It's like he was saying, you're a common denominator in everything that happens in your life. But then we look for someone or something to blame, and I can understand why people blame God and say, well, how can you, as a loving God, let this happen? If you understand and know everything and you created everything, then why do you let pain and suffering continue? And this is what AJ has helped me about too, because he explained of how man's soul condition has degenerated over millennia, generation to generation. So we're left with the tab. We're actually born with the debt, so to speak, emotionally, and we don't understand it. And this is what he was saying about energetically, emotionally, where it's passed on for generations. So we're born with this error that's coming out of our soul, and we wonder why we're having a tough and hard life and all this pain and grief we seem to be attracting or going in cycles, is because it's already been installed like a download inside of us. So I understand
This isn't the Jesus guy, Homo sapien. This is one of his followers.
Up there and in a place called Summerland, and that you can talk and see loved ones or relatives in sleep state.
Oh, you're good, Phoenix.
But I don't remember a lot
It's
of my...
fine to use all caps when you are intending to show that you are yelling. It's just not okay when it's, you know, someone who doesn't know that and just types in all caps all the time. Fine when you're intentionally trying to signal that you are... It's a loud, like, expletive.
Sleep state, apparently due to fears that I haven't dealt with, but it's really difficult because so much shame and guilt around that. Having a baby is supposed to be the most wonderful experience, but then to have ours go so terribly wrong. It was a home birth, and then
it was a home birth. I am kids, people, adults, everyone. Do you know historically the mortality rate for newborns and mothers before hospitals? It's not good. Please do not have a home birth. Please go to a hospital. Please give birth at a hospital. Please give birth at a hospital. I am begging you, do not endanger yourself and your baby.
I won't go into details, but then I was investigated for 4 hours, like within hours of the death, as a possible... It was a crime scene. I came home to get some clothes from the hospital, and then basically it was all my unit and everything was roped off as a crime scene. What? It was the worst experience of my life, but again, that represents the devastation that's already in my soul. And so I'm still trying to understand it all fully.
I found it extremely sad to hear.
Tina 2, thank you for the raid. Welcome, raiders. I hope you had a good stream, Tina. Make sure you check out Tina 2 here on Twitch. Could we get a shout out for Tina? Right now we're watching some videos about a cult leader from Australia who claims to be Jesus. We've been doing this all day so far, or for the stream so far. He's a creep. Manipulating people, so warning for that. Trigger warning for, like, manipulation, cult stuff.
Here that Jason felt responsible for such a tragic event. AJ believes many of Jason's...
Found something that appears to be an excerpt from his cult material. Thank you.
And not only that, all it needs in the end is one person here...
They are so bad at audio technician stuff.
...on earth to become at one with God again. That's really all we need. Once we have one person who becomes at one with God on earth, millions of people will notice that, just like people noticed in the first century. Does that make sense? And once you have one, there's a high likelihood of you having two, and then having three, and then having four, and then having 10, and then having 100, right? But if no one's, like in 2,000 years of experimentation, this is what it was like for us. For 2,000 years of experimentation, we tried to assist people to even listen to the truth, let alone write it down or practice it themselves. And the only person in that 2,000-year period that we ever got to listen to us to an open enough extent to write down quite a number of truths was James Paget, actually.
Oh, this is the whole thing? Oh, yeah. This is on their YouTube channel. Yeah, makes sense. Oh, where did that documentary go? That's Vice.
His views are in contrast with his teachings, and that Jason is unnecessarily blaming himself.
H-Baird says, maybe he's really the reincarnation of the guy whose ear got cut off by St. Peter that would explain the crappy audio.
AJ believes that Jason has a part to play in his son's death because he is his father, not because he didn't know about God. And there are also many other factors which would have contributed beside Jason. AJ told me the complexities of the Divine Truth belief system are not always fully understood by the people that follow them. I understand why tragic events are blamed on a loveless God. I was interested to hear how Divine Truth, a belief system based on love, can explain how such suffering can occur.
This documentarian is shit, by the way. I've actually seen this video before. By the end, he has a pretty benign, at best, overall feeling about the group, and he, like, says, I don't think he's a cult leader. So, the guy who shot this is either part of the cult or an idiot who got manipulated. Like, I really don't know. It's bad, though.
explain things like malaria and children dying of that?
Well, most of these diseases, again, are naturally occurring diseases which our body should be able to fight against as long as our body is in complete harmony with love. As long as we don't have emotions within us that have been usually imposed upon us by our environment that are out of harmony with love, our body will be able to fight any of these diseases and actually not even experience them in all cases. So whenever anybody experiences disease of any kind, it's because of the lack of love that's either that exists within the soul of the individual, that is usually caused by, and in case of children is always caused, by the lack of love in the parents and in society generally. So almost everything, well, everything that actually occurs, I'll just pull over here, inside of the body of any individual, anything that occurs inside the body of any individual occurs because of the environmental conditions that have created soul-based feelings inside of the
Oh my god, I'm sorry. That guy looked scarily like my dad. Oh, that's not good. That creeps me out. Oh god. Oh god, he looks like younger alternate universe my dad. The same hairdo and goatee and dead look in his eyes. Oh no. I don't like that.
Feelings inside of the individual that are out of harmony with love. Now, in the case of a child, usually those feelings are being caused by their parents or their immediate environment. As wide as there are possible emotional experiences causes the wide variety of diseases. So obviously every single disease has its unique signature emotionally as to what is its cause. Every single cancer, for example, the different types of cancer have specific emotional causes related to the location where the disease began. If a woman has cancer that begins in her left breast, then this is all about projections she has to women, and in particular it would have began with her mother, which is a suppressed rage, which is overcoming, which is over the top of an addiction, and the addiction is wanting women to do what she wants in order to receive approval from women. So if the cancer is in the right breast, then it will be with men rather than women.
That's nonsense. What are you talking about? Just a Peach with $1 tip says, fun fact, the church we go to, one, its parents' church is based on the teaching of the guy who was hit by St. Nicholas. That Council of Nicaea shit got real.
So even the predisposition of a family tree towards a specific type of disease is related to the family tree having a predisposition towards certain emotions.
We all understand that stress unchallenged causes detrimental effects on the body. So on a fundamental level, we understand that emotions can cause disease. This
guy has got to be in the cult.
Truth belief will, however, definitely confront many families who have lost loved ones to cancer. However, if what AJ is saying is correct, and science can prove his claim,
if what he's saying is correct, you see what I mean? He's devil's advocating for the insane cult leader.
Then he could be holding the answers for a cure for all known diseases.
I don't think it's that one. I don't think it's that one. I don't think the con artist has secretly got a cure for all disease.
It was reported in the media that AJ's mother was worried for him because she thought he may have mental health issues. An allegation I
can't imagine why.
Wanted to get to the bottom of.
Both mothers in my first century life and this life claimed that I had mental health issues. So my first century mother, Mary, claimed that I had mental health issues.
In the first century, they would not contextualize that as mental health issues. That is not how that would be contextualized. In the first century in Judea, if you had mental illness, they thought you had demons. Like, what? Maybe they thought you were touched in the head by a spirit. They did not call it mental illness or something equivalent. What are you talking about? Ultra Not Dying says, Hannah, let me know when to start streaming. Alright, I'll be done in about 40 minutes, so any time adjacent to that.
Frequently, and often she claimed that to protect me, she felt, from people attacking me and finish up killing me. In this life, my mother felt initially when I claimed that I was Jesus that I might have some mental health problem. Of course, I went along to the doctor and had a chat with him, and he was pretty much fine after I had a chat with him. And of course, my mother, by the 9-month time, felt that I didn't have any mental health problems, and she was quite regretful that she'd started the entire process.
H-Beard says this is what his first century mother had to say.
Now you listen here. He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. Now go away.
AJ has 2 sons from a previous marriage. I was given a unique opportunity to hear what AJ's son Tristan thought about his father being Jesus.
I definitely believe he's Jesus.
I'm sorry, I didn't know I forgot he had a kid. They didn't mention it in the other documentaries, so... Wow, okay.
Even now, like...
That really took me aback for a second.
He said next day, oh, actually, it's all...
Pork Tool, thanks for following.
I'm not actually Jesus. I wouldn't be that upset. I'd feel a little bit weirded out because like, I'm pretty sure he is Jesus. Like, I think I'd start believing that he thinks he's wrong. But from the first time he told me, he was actually going through a lot of emotion himself. So for him, he was crying, and he was trying to process through a lot of grief, sadness, some of the memories of torture that he had, some of the fears he had of what's going to happen if he says he's Jesus. He was really scared about that, so he was in bed crying, screaming, shaking for I would be up to about 6 months, almost all day.
Yes, when I was 33 years of age, most people felt that I had Parkinson's disease. And the reason why is because I had so much fear inside of me that I would just shake like this constantly. My whole body would shake like this constantly. And as a result of that, almost anybody who met me would first ask me, "Are you all right? What's wrong with you?" When I was 33, I started processing through a lot of terror. Terror about torture-based events, actually. And I didn't put them in the Jesus basket. So in other words, I didn't attribute them to my being Jesus. I just realised that at some point in my past, and at that point in time I didn't even believe I had a past besides my 33 years of age. I realised that at some point in my past I'd gone through some fairly traumatic events. I didn't know what they were, but the memories were of people...
Just a Peach with a $1 tip says, the original story of Mary Magdalene was a person suffering from demons, which was changed by the church later to a lady of the night to get them to go to church and give them money.
Driving nails through my body and through my ankles and my feet and my wrists, and people torturing me in different ways, and like a big stake being driven through my hip on the right-hand side, and other things like this, and you know, I don't have any of those scars in my body at all now, and so I had no way of intellectually resolving why I was having these emotional experiences, but I just decided to feel them, and as I felt them, the terror disappeared, and eventually it got to the point where I had hardly any terror anymore, and I was nice and calm and no longer seemed to have Parkinson's.
It was another 7 years of processing these painful emotions.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the stake through the hip thing. That may or may not be biblical. I don't recall that. I know the crown of thorns, the whipping and the flaying with the various stuff, the hammering the hands and sort of above the feet in like the ankle area, stabbing in the side injury. I don't recall a part where Jesus is said to have a stake through his hip, but it's possible I'm just forgetting that.
Before AJ came to the conclusion he was Jesus. I'm told that actually 7 couples have returned to Earth from the spirit world. Some are unwilling to reveal or accept their identities, and others are coming to terms with the memories they have.
Like if we did what we were doing, say, in America at the moment, where 70% of them are Christian and very, very militant, some of them, then it might not be as safe to do some of the things we're currently doing. And one of the 14 have been murdered, but the rest of the 14 are still alive, and therefore it's given us the best chance to teach divine truth as possible, assuming the different ones of the 14 decide to do that.
AJ's neighbour Dave, or Cornelius, his first century name, is one of the 14.
Guessing he's confused about the Spear of Destiny. He's referenced that too, though. The Spear of Destiny, for those that don't know, is the spear that is allegedly supposed to have pierced Jesus. Similar alleged holy artifact, like, you know, the cup, fucking Indiana Jones 3, Holy Grail, Holy Grail, and the Spear of Destiny. And there's other stuff probably.
Speak to me about his life in the first century.
I was born in Sicily as a little kid there, and just lived in a little house with a little sort of cottage, I guess you call it, stone one, with my parents and sisters. The sisters are a bit two older sisters. And one day, just at the end of the day, some soldiers come and broke into our house, or forced their way in, I should say, I suppose, and held my...
No, the Shroud of Turin wasn't historically considered like an actual relic. That was a forgery that was created. It's an old forgery, but it wasn't considered like canon by the church, I don't think, like the Spear of Destiny and the Holy Grail were.
Father...
I could be wrong.
To the door with a sword, and two others, there's about 5 of them, they come in. I was just terrified and ran out to a little corner and just hunkered down, and they were coming. I didn't know why they came in for, and
you can buy actual relics on eBay. Yeah, quote, actual relics. During the Middle Ages, there was a huge trade in fake holy artifacts. Like, oh, here's a pipe that was, you know, used by Saint so-and-so, you know, like, it was mostly fake. It was mostly fakes, and people still sell fake holy artifacts to this day, but the age-old tradition.
They'd come to grab me. I just was terrified. I remember weeing myself, and they come and took me away, and they took me to their garrison, where the army troops were. They just pretty much, I suppose, politically back then, they were actually expanding the empire quite savagely then too, and just started becoming the violent person they wanted me to be, and I became quite good at that. That was the only way I got love back then, or there was no aggro coming at me as much. If I became good, I got more acceptance, I guess, because I had enough of being hurt. And yeah, it was in there for a long, long time, and I remember early teenage years.
I've heard both, near us.
As you're sort of getting more in your sexual development, I used to have these old haggy women that would come along, and they'd take us to them, and the women would, you know, start playing with you and get you excited and stuff like that, and they'd have sex with you. And just like, it was gross, like horrible things, but you didn't understand what's going on in your body as well. You're having these exciting, like, nice feelings for once. Often it's just been violence, and there was these nice feelings, and they'd have sex with you, and they'd just be really...
I'm sorry, is he saying that as a Roman soldier he didn't know what sex was?
Nasty to you, and oftentimes the men would come along and rape you anally as well then too. So it's just like this horrible experience.
I'm not getting into that.
Yeah, not too nice. It's really confusing in your head as well. Like, your body's experiencing something nice and something like just horrific after that too. And
I know that same-sex sexual activities between soldiers in the Roman Empire would not have been uncommon, but were they unconsensual? I was not under the impression that they were generally unconsensual. I'm sure there were non-consensual, you know, because human beings. But, like, he's acting as though that is typically a forceful act, and I did not believe that that was the norm.
Everything was just to mentally screw you up, basically, and just become a machine.
Cornelius is still come to terms with his first century existence. There are chunks of his life he is yet to remember, but he vividly remembers his final months on earth when he met Jesus.
And so, yes, one of my slaves was sick.
In Rome, you could be a top with no censure, but bottoms were another story. It's bullshit. Bottom rights. Solidarity.
And I took the slave to see this guy. I want to see what he, like, if he is who he is, to prove it to me. And he actually healed my slave and just gave me a lot of faith that what he was saying was true. It was my men that actually had to go, and me in charge of them, that had to go and do the execution, basically, or the crucifixion, as they call it. And, yeah, by the time we got up there to do it, and I was the one that was actually leading them and nailing him down to the post thing he's on. And I was going to had his hands pulled back to do it on his hands and his wrists, and he was just looking at me, and I looked at him, and I just couldn't do anything violent to him, because I could feel he's just different, and he had love coming from him, and that was so rare in those days, and it's something that I was always looking for and had the real faith.
Phoenix says, I feel like this guy had an actual trauma and he's lying or hallucinating this version of the story. I don't think he's lying. I think he's been manipulated into basically manufacturing traumatic memories. And it's possible he suffered real sexual trauma at some point in his life. I don't know. But people can have false memories implanted by people, by cult leaders. In the 80s, there was a big rash of hack psychiatrists basically implanting false memories in children about ritual satanic abuse that never occurred, but they convinced these children it happened to them. So this can happen. If something is repeated to you over and over again and you're in the right state of mind for it, you can be convinced and manufacture false memories. Sucks. Part of the human brain.
And it's already shown me that he actually, like all the things he'd done, I could see there's a lot of love in him, so yeah, I couldn't do it. Couldn't be violent anymore, I just couldn't do it. And so I just walked off.
So they hung me like that and crossed at the wrist, because if they hung me through the hands, then my hands would tear apart and not bear the weight, but the weight could be borne much better by hanging a person through the wrists and nailing the feet crossed over, like so. And then they stood me up. Now, at that time, there's all this pressure, and because you're hanging like this, there's a lot more pressure than like this. Hanging, there's no way to support yourself so much like this. So I tore apart quite rapidly.
Yeah, they found me and they took me to a main area, the main sort of public area, and they tortured me there for quite a long time. It was pretty much, I embarrassed the whole Roman Empire by walking off, and they'd cut my penis off as well, and eventually ended up opening my stomach up as well, disemboweling me. Pretty much I embarrassed the whole Roman Empire by walking off.
He embarrassed the whole Roman Empire? Does he know how big the Roman Empire was? Again, like, his story doesn't make sense from a real-world perspective. It only makes sense from a narrative perspective in which he is placing himself somewhere in the mythology of this story. It doesn't make sense in how people actually behave.
And they'd cut my penis off as well, and eventually ended up opening my stomach up as well, disemboweling me. And I remember just
weird detail about his privates being cut off. Something Sigmund Freud. Something castration anxiety.
Just seeing the sky all the time. There's birds eating my stomach at that stage too, and just looking at the sky, I just felt a bit more peace and realised the only bit of power I still got is I can choose to die. That's
lost YouTube. Yeah, I was wondering if that would happen with this documentary.
I just ended up giving my last breath away, and that was it.
But as soon as I died, I could see everything, because I knew that would happen. So I knew that as soon as my physical body died, I could watch the proceedings. So I watched them spear me, break my legs. I watched, and it was just my body then. You know, it's not me anymore.
I very much wanted to be present during the entire couple of days before his passing.
All right. I'll move on to another thing so YouTube can rejoin us. It should pop back up once I'm done with that video for a little bit. Oh,
Do you play favourites with people? And by that I mean, do you spend time with a favourite group of people, or do you spend time with more of one person than another?
Definitely I play favourites, definitely. When I say play favourites, I don't play them. I feel, definitely feel have more...
Something I really hate is that I like his fashion sense. Like, it's not necessarily great, but, like, it's consistent, you know what I mean? He's always wearing these goddamn colorful shirts. If he wasn't a shitty cult leader, I'd like him. At least his fashion sense.
Feelings for some people than I do for other people in terms of the feelings of love.
Welcome back, YouTube.
You know, I love everybody in the sense that I will share with them truthfully, honestly and openly everything that I feel and think at the time. However, there are certain people that are far more pleasurable for me to be with than other people. For example, if a person doesn't believe I am Jesus, then I don't find them as pleasurable to spend time with as a person who does. Also,
yeah, I bet. That is how cults work. Usually the leaders like being around the members more than others because they, you know, validate their delusions and their delusions of grandeur in particular.
Person feels that they need to, you know, spin me a yarn, you know, tell me, as we say in Australia, I should probably make that more worldwide, tell me some things so that I do or say or spend more time with them, but it's not real. You know, if a person acts in a manner that's not honest or ethical or with integrity with me, then of course I don't want to spend much time with them. I'd much rather go out and spend time with any person, in fact, on the planet than to spend time with a person who's being fake with me. There are many people who come to me or come to me in my seminars who are fake with me, and I tell them that they're being fake with me, and they still try to be fake with me, and so I don't find them very pleasurable to spend time with.
Maybe they're not being fake and your read on the situation is bad?
I find people who have the same attitudes as myself towards others, the same desire to love as I have towards others, very pleasurable to spend my time with. I also enjoy the company of people who just let me be myself. You know, they're not always analysing and always critical and always questioning every action I take, you know, as if I've got some hidden agenda or hidden motive for it. You know, obviously, if you're constantly under surveillance by people, you're not going to enjoy the company of those particular people. So I don't enjoy the company of people who are constantly checking me out, constantly analysing what I do, constantly...
He doesn't like people who question him. He doesn't like people who maybe have a thought of their own and don't just go along with whatever he says and makes him justify himself.
You know, doubtful or mistrustful of me all the time. I don't enjoy people like that. Like, I'll spend some time with them occasionally, but I don't enjoy them. I don't enjoy people. I will love them. I will treat them in a loving manner. I won't get angry with them. I won't get resentful of them. But I certainly can't, like, enjoy their company all the time, because I'd much rather spend time with people who are real with me. I also dislike spending time with people who are demanding.
Oh, by the way, random thing. My birthday's Wednesday, but I don't get paid till Friday. So if you want to help me get, like, cake and maybe something for dinner that day and maybe some groceries, consider between now and Wednesday using the tip link if you want to support the show. Thanks.
And who are angry, you know, who just come along and expect me to do things for them, or who enter an emotional bartering system with me. I don't enjoy their company much.
An emotional bartering system? I'm so curious what he means by that. Does he mean that both you and your friend or partner have a mutual respect for each other? Because that's kind of what it sounds like.
Either I'll tell them that they're trying to enter a barter, and then I'll just say, I'll leave you with that, you know, because I don't really want to spend much more time with them.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say, Diogenes. It feels like I'm afraid he's describing reciprocal emotional support as emotional bargaining or bartering.
Until they sort out that particular emotional barter. I don't like spending time with people who are just attacking all the time or pessimistic. You know, I find pessimism something that is rife on the planet, and something that's totally pointless and unnecessary. There is no, you know, if a person is...
Weirdly, YouTube still says stream suspended to you. Have you refreshed?
Pessimistic all the time, they need to work their way through their grief and other emotions that trigger their pessimism, And I don't really want to spend too much time with persons who are pessimistic all the time. I'd love to spend time with people who are optimistic, who have some, passion and desire for things. If anybody has a passion and desire for anything, I love spending time with them. If you've got a passion and desire for, fixing...
Jesus, I have a passion and desire for Blu-rays and also debunking liars. You want to hang out?
Up animals or, any pursuit, in fact. Like, I can spend time in a company of a person who's got some passion and desire for things that are in harmony with love, rather than people who are just sort of, apathetic and just don't care and have no motivation. Those kind of people don't appeal to me very much. I want to help them if I can, but I believe a lot of help can only be given when a person has a true desire to receive it. I don't agree with spending time with people who have no desire to be real, who have no desire to be truthful, who are constantly, either lying to me or lying to themselves. I don't enjoy their company. And so I certainly don't want to spend...
Holy fuck, drops a lot with $100 tip, says happy birthday, Hannah. Thank you so much. That's great. We're going to be able to get some groceries and stuff to make a cake. Thank you. That's so generous of you, and I appreciate it to no fucking end. Thank you. Genuinely from the bottom of my fucking heart. Thank you. That's awesome.
Spend much time with those kind of people. So there's probably a list of things of people that I would not enjoy the company of.
That is, I whenever people give me that much money, I don't feel worthy of it. Thank you. Sincerely. I know how much that is. That's so much money, and it's so generous of you to do that. So thank you.
And I do believe, however, and I have seen many, many people who come from those particular backgrounds. Like I've seen many pessimistic people become optimistic.
Not gonna cry. I don't
I've seen
cry
many
on
people
stream.
who are just carrying around their sadness like a badge become less demanding. I've seen many people become, develop some self-worth and not demand that other people give them worth. I've seen many people give without wanting anything back. And these kind of people I enjoy the company of. And I've seen many people change into those kind of people. So I love to assist people to change. And I love changing myself, and I love assisting people to change as best I am able. So if a person has a desire, a true desire, a sincere desire to change, I will generally spend a lot of time with them, much longer than many other people would spend with them. And I am often very patient with such people as well in my interactions with them, and even very patient with...
Is that a fucking cockatoo in the background? Do they have a cockatoo? H-Bird says we have a video of what he's complaining about. See what it is.
Hail Santa! Get him, Jesus! I help those who help themselves.
There's a Futurama clip for everything. Futurama's a great show that got worse every time it came back, but it's still pretty good.
with how they treat me, because many of them treat me quite badly while I'm spending time with them. But I'm still patient with them because I feel they have a desire to change. I don't like spending time very much with people who are just critical and have no desire to change. They think they're right.
In Australia, they have a lot of wild cockatoos. Of course, duh. In my stupid American brain, I'm going, cockatoo? Why do they have an exotic bird? But to them, that's not an exotic bird. That's just a bird. That's my bad.
Right, who are arrogant.
That's my northern hemisphere chauvinism showing.
The time. I don't desire to spend time with that, and I suggest that the majority of people on the planet probably don't enjoy spending time with people like that either. So I love spending time with people who are positive, have direction, take personal responsibility for their life just like I do. I don't like spending time with people who want me to take responsibility for their life, want me to take responsibility for what they want in their life, want me to create for them. I don't enjoy spending time with those kind of people. And I think if most people were honest with themselves...
Altered Undying, if you're still here, probably start stream soon. I'm getting close to the end of the stream, so...
Most people...
Altered Undying is starting a Twitch channel, chat. You know Altered Undying from chat, so we're going to give Altered Undying a raid today.
probably wouldn't enjoy time with the people I've
I
just
believe
listed.
the channel is called Your Canadian Girlfriend. Pretty funny name.
When we love perfectly, do we enjoy spending time with everyone?
No, I don't believe so. I feel personally that when we love perfectly, we can give our love to every single person that we meet, but it doesn't mean that we would seek them out for our enjoyment. For example, if I can, often when we look at extremes, we can see the example, right? So let's give an example. If a person decided that every time he saw me, he wanted to punch me in the face, then I certainly wouldn't seek out his company. And I don't see, even if I loved myself and I loved the person as well, that I would ever seek out their company. I might have interactions with them where they punch me in the face because of situation or circumstance that's been attracted by them, but I would not purposefully go out to spend time with such a person who I know is just going to want to harm me. Now let's look at that from an emotional perspective. If there is a person who I know wants to harm me emotionally, in other words, they want to attack me, denigrate me, pull me down, make me feel worse about myself all the time, why would I want to spend any time with them? Of course I'm not going to want to spend any time with them. I wouldn't want to do an interview with them.
The new Jesus is very judgy. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to...
Kind of antithetical to the whole deal, right?
Talk with them. I wouldn't want to have a seminar with them. I wouldn't even want to go down and row, a canoe with them or anything like that if that's what they want to do. Because they want to pull me down, and I would have more love of myself than allowing that to continue. So I do not believe that any person who loves perfectly would always enjoy the company of another person who wants to harm them or denigrate them. They may still love them. In other words, they will treat them in a loving manner. They will never get angry with them, yell and scream at them, try to violently hurt them in return, or punish them, or any of those things. They will understand where the background of the individual and where they're coming from and what they're doing with their life, but they still would not want to spend time with them. Because in the end, you'd have to also love yourself if you love perfectly. So once you love perfectly, you would love each person on the planet as much as you love yourself, not more than you love yourself. And that would mean that you would not place yourself in situations where the other person denigrates you, pulls you down, disrespects you, and does it on purpose. Now, you may put yourself in situations where they do it mistakenly, where, you can confront them and point out the error or whatever, but you certainly would not choose to do it on purpose if you loved perfectly.
Why do we age and die?
Now, have any of you watched the movie or read the book?
Dorian Gray?
Sorry?
Dorian Gray, is that what you think?
Yeah, Dorian Gray. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A Portrait of Dorian Gray.
Yeah, some of you read Dorian Gray. And it's a story about a man who does evil things, and he goes to a mirror, and all of a sudden his face has changed to reflect the evil thing he did. It's a portrait. What happened was somebody painted...
I was going to say, has he read it or seen any of the movie adaptations? Because it doesn't seem like he's very familiar.
The portrait...
Yeah, what happens in the story, if you don't know, basically there's this guy, Dorian Gray, and he has this portrait that as he does evil and gets older, all of the evil makes the portrait look worse, and as he ages, he doesn't age, the portrait ages. That's it. That's all you need to know, really.
Of him, and then as he does things that are evil, the portrait changes and looks more demonic. It looks more...
Demonic? That's not how it's described. At the end, spoilers? Spoilers, at the end, the portrait is destroyed, and all of the things from the portrait become on him.
Looks like he's degraded his condition. Now, for most of us, that is what is happening on Earth. Every time we live out of harmony with love, there's something in our physical...
Made into a good movie in the 1940s. Yes, that, and it makes a good double feature with the what is his first name? Frederick March version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The Dorian Gray and Dr. Jekyll. They make a good double feature. I watched that Jekyll and Hyde movie recently. It was really good.
That actually changes, and our condition looks worse.
They're both stories about sort of Victorian ideas of good and evil and how it reflects on the human soul. You know. Veltwind with a $20 tip says, looks like we share a birthday week. Have a happy birthday, Hannah. You too. What day's your birthday?
The reason why we age is because our body changes towards the point of it looking the same as our spirit body. Do you understand? I don't know if all of you got that? Yes. The reason why we're aging is because our body is actually changing to approach what our spirit body actually looks like.
Wait, your spirit body looks like an old, wrinkly person? Oh, God. Oh, the Ides of March? That's a great birthday.
Do you understand?
People should beware of you, clearly.
So the reality is, if we were in more love, our spirit body would be in a very, very young condition, and our physical body, we could be 100 and look 25. Right? In other words, our physical body would change to meet the condition of our spirit body. But for the majority of us, our physical body is changing and looking older and more haggard, and eventually we get so aged and decrepit in our body, because that's now a mirror of our spirit body, that we actually can't sustain life anymore, and we pass. And that's why we pass. It's the reality of why we pass. If we were living in harmony with love and truth and humility, and we were at one with God, we'd look around 25 years of age or so. All of us. It doesn't matter whether you're 100 or 25. You still look 25. Yeah? Does that make sense to him, right? Yeah. So the spirit body, the physical body approaches the age of the spirit body, and that tells us, that's a beautiful feedback system that tells us that obviously there are things that are out of harmony with love. If we're getting older and more wrinkled and everything's happening, right? That's what's going on.
Okay then, whatever you say, Jesus. How to recognize your soulmate?
Soulmate questions, please.
How do you know if you've met a real soulmate?
Okay, good question. And most people don't, is the answer. The reason why they don't is, what do you reckon it might be?
Emotional injuries.
The emotional injuries. Yeah. So let's say I'm walking along the street, male, and my soulmate's walking in the other direction, and I've got an emotional injury that I need a woman to be 4 inches shorter than me.
It's an emotional injury that you want a partner shorter than you? What?
I find her attractive. A lot of men have got that injury, where they need the woman to be smaller than themselves. And let's say the woman's walking along, thinking she needs the man to be...
I certainly understand that you could be unhealthy about that and have, like, a toxic masculinity thing where, like, you need to be bigger. But, like, I don't think it's wrong to have a preference. That's not evil to have preferences for a partner. That's fine, as long as you're not, like, a dick to people about it.
4 inches taller than her to be attractive, right? Now, if she happens to be 5'7" and I happen to be 5'8", or what's that in centimetres, I don't know, 170 let's say, and 174, and what's going to happen?
Nothing.
I'll look at her, maybe, feel some kind of connection, but go, no, she's too short, or she's too tall, or he's too short, right? And walk on by. Just one little emotional injury caused me just to walk past my soulmate.
Do you meet that soulmate again and again, like the fish going around?
You may do. You certainly will.
What a non-answer. Maybe. You may do. Oh.
So So if you include your life as being the spirit world life as well, you will certainly come up with the soul.
So you get a second chance.
Moth Sloth with a $20 tip says, happy day of birth for me and the boyfriend. Thank you very much, Moth Sloth. Thank you for all the generous tips. Appreciate it, everyone.
Yeah, many soulmates. I've seen soulmates introduced to each other even in the spirit world, and they've taken one look at each other and just gone in the opposite direction. They've just said, no, that's not my soulmate. Off they've gone. And then, like, 100 years later, realised that, oh, he was actually.
Oh, damn.
So what is a soul connection, I suppose you could ask. A lot of people think, oh, I've got this wonderful sexual connection going on with this person. I just feel blown away sexually by this person. That is not necessarily a soulmate connection. The reason why is that I could have this really... sexual connection is about first and second chakras, right, in your body. Now, I could have...
We're bringing chakras
really severe
into this?
emotional injury in myself as a male where I feel like drawn to women who want to have power over me.
As we call it in the biz, a dommy mommy.
Right? Who am I going to be sexually attracted to? A woman who wants to have power over me. So I'll feel a strong sexual connection with her. Doesn't mean she's my soulmate. All it means is that our emotional injuries that cause the awakening of my sexual impulse are compatible. And the more compatible, the stronger the sexual desire. But it doesn't mean the person's my soulmate. And I might find that when I heal that injury within myself, that same person I find totally unattractive. So, can you see how important it is to heal my own?
Diogenes says, was Jesus known for giving lectures on sexual attraction back in the day? Is this going to be the main thrust of Bible 4.0?
Opposite sex emotional injuries? It's very, very important. So how do I recognise my soulmate then? Like,
I don't even know what that means. Someone asks, any chance you discuss a particular modern-day speakeasy and the Soviet Union? Be honest, I hate liars. I don't know what that means. I don't know what any of that means. Do you want to explain what that means in a way that would make sense to me? That would be good.
Well, it's very, very hard if I've got lots of
modern-day speakeasy
emotional injuries towards the opposite sex. Very hard. And that's why I say, like, be honest about these emotional injuries you feel towards the opposite sex. Really get into them and allow yourself to experience them and work your way through them, because if you don't, you firstly will never be complete for yourself.
So it's an obligation, really. You have to be the other half of yourself, isn't it?
Really, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's perfect. When you think about it, the way God created it is pretty clever, right?
Yeah. To be whole and complete.
To be whole and complete with your own self,
yeah,
which means the two of these being
you need
together.
The other half.
You're going to need the other half, which means that you're going to need to be dedicated to dealing with all of your injuries with the other half.
Yeah.
And so do they.
And so do they. Yeah. But the interesting thing about the soulmate attraction is if one of you make the choice to deal with all of your emotional injuries about the other half will automatically be drawn into your life.
No, I'm aware what a speakeasy is. I didn't understand the sentence you are talking about. What about a modern-day speakeasy in the Soviet Union? I don't know what... Like, what? I know what a speakeasy is. I just mean I don't understand your question.
Even if you were born in another country?
Even if you were born in another country.
And left when you were very young?
Sorry?
And you left when you were very young, so...
Yep. Yep.
That soulmate could come after you or before you?
Yep, and they'll be drawn, if you deal with your stuff, they'll be drawn for some reason to a certain place. Like, in this, I don't know, what do you want, my first century life or this one? I can give you an illustration of both if you want, with regard to soulmate. Let's look at the first century life. As I was growing up, I started, and I cleared out all of these emotional injuries with the opposite sex, right? What happened was that I
seems that AJ Miller's no longer alive, at least on his website. The most recent What's New was from 2021. The website was last updated in November 2023. I would have heard if he died, I feel like. He might just be laying low for a while.
Like, no sexual...
I imagine COVID probably fucked some of his in-person meetings and stuff. I don't know.
Attraction to anyone. So I got to the point where I didn't feel sexually attracted, and this was in my teenage years, didn't feel sexually attracted to anyone I met. And that just continued for the next quite a few years. It was nearly 15 years like that, where I wasn't sexually attracted to everyone. So I was attracted to everyone in terms of loving everyone, but not sexually attracted. What happened was that as I got myself into an at-one-ment condition with God, and I went through that process, then I began what I'd now call my public ministry, where I started talking to people about what the truth was that I'd gone through myself. Now, during that phase, I attracted the woman from a town. My soulmate was in a town that I probably would never have visited before then for any reason other than me wanting to teach the truth. Right? And because I visited that town, I met her. And as soon as I met her, I knew she was my soulmate. Now, she didn't know. She didn't know she was my soulmate at the time, but I knew. And I didn't tell her because I wanted her to come to the realisation herself, right, as to what was going on. But she felt very attracted to me, not because of me being a man she would normally be attracted to, but because she was more attracted to men who would make her feel secure and make her feel financially secure and so forth. That's what she was more
So you don't make her feel secure. Okay, interesting.
attracted to. And of course I didn't have much funds, and I was going around saying I was Messiah, which meant
Did he have two soulmates? He did claim that he had told another woman she was Mary Magdalene, so probably, I'm sure he would just say, oh, I was mistaken or something.
Probably had a short lifespan and things like that, right? So, you know, initially she would not have normally been attracted to a man like that. But she felt drawn to the message and to the message of truth, and that caused her to deal with some of her emotions, and then she realised that I was probably her soulmate. She had a lot of issues to work through about that, just like many of us do when we meet our soulmate.
Wait, did he say he told her?
I was the message of truth, and that caused her to deal with some of her emotions, and then she realised that I was probably her soulmate. She had a lot of issues to work through about that, just like many of us do when we meet our soulmate. Now,
Okay, we've been going 3 hours. That's probably enough of the fake Jesus guy. So thanks everyone for hanging out. I appreciate it. Like I said, I will be streaming tomorrow. Tuesday I have to work most of the day, so I won't be streaming then, but Wednesday's my birthday, and I will be streaming that day, probably midday, so I can enjoy the evening and, you know, watch movies and stuff. Love you too, Mr. Blast. So, let's raid your Canadian girlfriend. Alright, have a great night, everyone. I'll see you soon. If you haven't, give me a follow on Twitch or a subscription on YouTube, and I'll see you soon. Stay cool, everyone. Try not to join any cults.